Ask Gregory is a financial podcast from the guys who bring you Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. Something that's come up on the show over the last 10 years is that if you're not at your old job, maybe your 401k shouldn't be either. But do you really know why we say that? It's a funny thing. We put a few $100 in our 401k every month. It ends up to be thousands of dollars every year, hundreds of thousands of dollars over our career, and you don't really know that much about it. How do you invest it? How do you diversify? What do you buy? What do you avoid? You've got a financial situation and you're not quite sure what to do. Ask Gregory. Ask Gregory is our new podcast with these financial topics broken down into specific little chunks. So if you have a financial situation or you just want to learn more about money, ask Gregory. Find the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app or wherever you get podcasts. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. The firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government or any government agency.
That felt good. That one felt good. All right, Richard Elmore, nice to have you. Holy shit, here he is, everyone. We can officially start the show because the Doug Shelby has arrived in the chat room. The Doug Shelby. The gorgeous Fidgety Aura, thank you for joining us. Lovely Cindy, David Brown, thanks for coming on in. Uncle Dale and his Power Stash are here. If you see Uncle Dale in Austin, Texas, rub his mustache for good luck right through the 4th of July. Jeff Steve Garvey, he'll hit a home run for you. Lala B, looking lovely tonight. D. Worm, Beelzebrad, Brown Dwarf, nice to have you all here. I'm racing here because we got like 30 seconds. Steve Wolf, the gorgeous Dirt Road, AZ Man, how are you? Snacks, always a pleasure to have you here. We're going to run out of time. Bonjour, Pascal. Comment ça va? Merci beaucoup pour le super chat. All right, or chat super, pardon me. Ruger Ridge, thank you for joining us. Black Dragon, semper fi to you, the former Marine. We love our Marines around here. We got like 5 seconds left. We're going to rock and roll right now. Horns up. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Odyssey Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Listen to us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a power show for you tonight. We are bringing in a major panel to talk about some major UFO news about to break in the United States. Then in hour number 3, we'll head to the swamp with another spooky story from Swamp Dweller. Then continue with the UFO report with Fedora John. Shirky Poo's got the news. The news that is about to hit the world may very well go unnoticed. But those of us involved in the field of UAP, it's our job to make sure the majority of you know what is truly happening in this world. The United States Congress is on the eve of holding the first public hearings on UFOs in over 50 years. Many politicians seem upset to learn that the UAP subject is real and being withheld by the military branches and the Pentagon for decades. Many are opening up to the fact that we may, indeed, not be alone in this universe. Joining us tonight are experts in their field. We have communications specialist and journalist Bruce Claggett, from Zealand Communications, activist Victor Vigiani, insider and former CIA member Dr. Bob McGuire, researcher and author Michael Huntington, And from MUFON's board of directors, we have our good friend Tom Whitmore with us tonight. Gentlemen, I want to say a big thank you for coming together on short notice because of this historic night. And Victor, I want to start with you because you, Bruce, and I, we're the Canadian content here. And you are somebody who, for almost 40 years now, have been an activist in ufology, trying to get something like this done. You went through it in 1992. Now, 30 years later, here we go again. I'm going to get you to unmute your mic there, Victor.
Okay. Yeah, it's been quite a chronology, David, and that chronology beginning back, and as far as I'm concerned, when I first did the radio program Strange Days Indeed with Errol Bruce Knapp, some of the more traditional listeners will remember that. As far back as then, we began to use the word disclosure, and I attempted to inject that word into the narrative to begin with, and was firmly castigated by everybody on UFO updates, in MUFON, and in a number of jurisdictions, critically lambasted for using the word disclosure. And here we are, many years later, on the verge of what many people would call the ultimate form of acknowledgement. I'm not going to call it disclosure, but we are definitely in a period of total acknowledgement within the whole realm of this UAP issue. So over the last 35 to 40 years, that kind of information that I have been involved in and attempting to put forward within the media and within the political realm has now become a reality that we're all dealing with right now. So it's been a really quick fast forward for me, David. So, you take a look back to 1985 when I first started into 2017 and to where we are right now in 2022. It's been a real head whip for everybody. And there's a number of issues that we have to deal with in that chronology and how it all happened politically, within the intelligence community, and a number of other realms that we have to discuss tonight. So it's really been a whirlwind, and we're finally at a point now where we can actually say that the political realm within the United States, I must say, and even in Brazil is another part of it too, is actually dealing with this issue on a frontline, mainstream way. We have a lot of work to do, but still, right now, tomorrow, those of us who want to be plugged into this issue should be plugged into it by watching the hearings tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. here Eastern time. So it is a big step forward. We still have a lot of work to do, still a lot of questions to ask, a lot of mistrust within the media, a lot of mistrust within the UAP research community. But the fact of the matter is we are in a place now where we've wanted to be for the last 75 years.
Well, let's bring in from MUFON's board of directors, Tom Whitmore here. Tom, thank you so much for joining us. And playing off of what Victor says, you've been in this a long time now, and you have seen everything. So We're getting a little bit of feedback here, guys. I don't know who it's from. I'm just trying to find the speaker here for it. All right, sorry about that. Tom, you've been in the game long enough to know, and you've seen the song and dance between the United States government, and you've talked to insiders on both sides of the ledger. I mean, for you, what does these congressional hearings mean as not only a UFO enthusiast, but as a member of MUFON as well?
Well, it's very exciting. There's just no way of getting around that. And it's historic in that it's entirely correct that it's been some 52 years since the last congressional hearings on UFOs. So this is a huge opportunity, I think, for Congress to try to make some headway against the Pentagon. And they can actually call these guys on the carpet, so to speak, and get them on the record. They better not lie when they're talking to the Congress people. Now, There's going to be a classified briefing or a classified hearing, I'm sure, afterwards or at some point. But from a public standpoint, I think it's absolutely fantastic that the mainstream media can't avoid this and they can't act like it doesn't exist. It's here. It's real. It's reality.
Well, I want to bring in Bruce Claggett here because Bruce is my insider to all things media, and I've known Bruce for almost 20 years now, worked with him. He's a former journalism instructor. He's now the owner of BFC Communications out of Vancouver, British Columbia. Bruce, when you and I have talked in the media about this before, we've always talked about the lack of transparency and the lack of emotion that a lot of news outlets have really strive to take on this topic. But this time, I realize we're in Canada, but there is a lot of momentum and stories that come out of the United States. How does the media have to react to this story that is coming out?
Well, Dave, simply put, it cannot be ignored. And it can't be ignored for several reasons. The first reason is it is news. If you go through what makes news, it checks all the boxes. It's got freshness, it's got proximity, it's got ramifications, impact, all those things that determine a news story. They're there right now. And also it's got validation and credibility. When it goes before the U.S. Congress in a hearing, in a committee hearing, it's got a reason for that happening. The fact it's a public hearing means the public needs to know. So journalists pick up on those type of things, and whether they're in the United States, Canada, or anywhere else in the world, they're going to be paying attention. Is it going to be everybody? No. But, this is the first time since, 1966? So that's going on. I heard people saying 50 years. Well, I'm 55 and I was born in 67. So it's like 56 years. So it's been quite a long time since this level of actual concern and credibility has come forefront.
How does the media have to tackle this subject, Bruce? Because there's going to be those who take it like a regular news story. There's those who are going to investigate it further. And then there's going to be those who play it off and dismiss it, that the weirdos are wearing too much tinfoil again.
Right. Yeah, Dave, we've talked about this in the past. And one of the things that's always kind of bothered me is whether it is tackled as a real story. And nobody's making any conclusions here. It's a story based on questions, and that makes it a story. Or whether it's going to be treated as kind of that kicker story at the end of a newscast, which for far too long, in my view, it's been kind of like, you know what, we're going to dismiss this. Nobody really cares. It's kind of like the joke. And hey, what about in alien news? In UFO news, oh, ha, ha. And we've got to get past that point, and I think we're making strides in getting past that point.
All right, let's bring in Michael Huntington here, author and researcher of everything paranormal and supernatural. And Michael, your first words of the night, how excited are you about these hearings?
Well, as a longtime researcher and a UFO nerd, a UFO news junkie, it's certainly exciting. Whenever you have these media, these media focus events, and we've had several of these over the past couple of years. It sort of galvanizes the community. It sort of, gets everybody excited. It diverts us from all the camp tribalism and fighting that goes on. It gives us something to focus on, that is actually about the subject. So it's beneficial in that respect. I'm cautious. I know the history of this subject. It's been a long time since there's been hearings, but certainly the United States military and the intelligence community has been active in this subject over the past 75 years. And a lot of it has been sort of manipulative. And so as a researcher within the community, I'm cautious. In the 90s, we had the Roswell report that came out, and people were excited during that time period. During that day and age, it was alien autopsies and Roswell, and everything was sort of hyped up during that period as well. And then, the report came, and it was sort of a big letdown, and it sort of, pushed a lot of people out of the subject, I think, in a lot of ways. So it'll be interesting to see. I will be watching. I will be tuning in. I will be looking for some intriguing answers, but I don't know if we'll get any. I think we'll get a lot of, political intel speak. I know there'll be a lot of discussion about, air safety and security and that sort of thing. Whether or not they're going to get into the issue of, extraterrestrial visitation, government cover-ups over, 7 or 8 decades, I highly doubt it. But we'll see what happens. Maybe this will be the first of many hearings. Maybe this will be it. We will see.
And finally, Dr. Bob McGuire, known as Science Bob around these parts, we bring you in here because you know a lot of the players in the game. You've been there on the inside. You've been there on the outside looking in now. I mean, knowing the politicians you have spoken to about this subject and the insiders that you have talked to off the record, that conversations that'll never become public, how do you look at these hearings? Is this a big day not only for the United States but the world?
Okay, so it is a big deal because it's the first time these Pentagon officials, which we will name in a minute, will be called before Congress and ask questions, and you just do not go before Congress and lie because it's a felony. All right, so that's a big deal. And Ron Moultrie is the Pentagon's top intelligence person. He's the leader of all intelligence gathering operations and all of the 3-letter agencies that are defense agencies work for him under his control, even if they have military commanders. For example, the National Security Agency has a 4-star general. But these military agencies, their activities inside of the Pentagon are coordinated by the Pentagon's top intelligence official, along with all of the service intelligence agencies. And Scott Bray is the deputy director of the Naval Intelligence. So Moultrie and Bray will be testifying. And I am certain to almost complete certainty, beyond a reasonable doubt, that they are guilty of never having been exposed to the insider secrets. They are not exposed to the insider secrets because I believe and have believed for a while and have some knowledge that the way this cabal works is it's an informal collection of people who choose new members as members roll out, and they work at very high levels in the government and control large swaths of the budget inside the intelligence community and the Pentagon. And this method, and then it's like a secret society. It's like you're a member of a temple or a fraternity or whatever. That's a secret society, and that's how they run it. And so it's not an official on the record thing. It's run kind of as this secret society, and these people are fighting like mad to keep the secret, but I believe they are losing. So I believe there have been lots of retirements and people leaving this little cabal, and the people that are coming in are not as hard-nosed as the people who were in there before. And I also believe there's all sorts of negotiations going on about something akin to truth and reconciliation. And this truth and reconciliation is not going to be complete like it was, say, in South Africa at the end of apartheid. And that's because every person inside the United States can file a lawsuit against anybody they want to. So there's going to have to be a lot of stuff, groundwork laid for people to come out. Please notice, there's not a single Air Force official coming to testify. The Air Force is still trying to do a cover-up. So, and this is just one more thing, and I'll let Victor jump in. Lou thinks it's going to be a big deal, and I am looking for one thing, and one thing only, They are not from a power on earth that we are aware of, and they're not ours. If I get that, which immediately goes to is something like extraterrestrial, I will be completely happy. Go ahead, Victor.
You know what? I cannot agree with you more. It's very rare that I agree with people to the extent that what you've said. This situation here is exactly the way you framed it. These two pigeons are put up right now as the test case, and I use the pigeon metaphor advisedly, because it's like, shooting clay pigeons out of the sky. They just crack when you shoot them, and they will fall apart because they know nothing or very little about this situation, and they're being put up by this committee. And I'm not doubting this committee's work. Please don't get me wrong here. I think what we're doing here, what they are doing here, is very, very important. But I think the problem is they've put up two clay pigeons to sort of test the waters. And what these two individuals, what Bray and Moultrie are going to do, is sort of spoon out to the regular media, to the political entities that have an interest in this, what they want them to hear. And that's going to be virtually nothing with a capital N that they haven't heard before. So why are they doing this? What I think the committee is doing is setting up a framework whereby they can issue some sort of motivation behind why this has to become something more than what it is tomorrow. And the big issue is national security. And if this hearing does anything, it will bring forward the issue of national security with respect to the UAP issue. Now, I don't like the issue of national security because it's embedded in a threat scenario and everything like that. So that's the problem. But this is a door opener for the many, many military and I think intelligence individuals that can come forward after this. So we've got this scenario where you've got these two individuals from the Navy and from the intelligence community putting forward ideas to the general public and to this community that might be salient, but there is so much more to this issue than what these two individuals are going to be able to bring forward. So is this a step forward or is it a step backward? I'm not quite sure. And how the committee actually manages or manipulates or handles these two individuals will allow.
Ask Gregory is a financial podcast from the guys who bring you Winning at Life with Gregory Riggs. Something that's come up is, if you're not at your old job, maybe your 401k shouldn't be either. But do you really know why we say that? Ask Gregory is our new podcast with financial topics broken down into specific little chunks. So if you have a financial situation or you just want to learn more about money, Ask Gregory. Find the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app or wherever you get podcasts. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. The firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government or any government agency. Ask Gregory is a financial podcast from the guys who bring you Winning at Life with Gregory Riggs. Something that's come up on the show over the last 10 years is that if you're not at your old job, maybe your 401k shouldn't be either. But do you really know why we say that? It's a funny thing. We put a few $100 in our 401k every month. It ends up to be thousands of dollars every year, hundreds of thousands of dollars over our career, and you don't really know that much about it. How do you invest it? How do you diversify? What do you buy? What do you avoid? You've got a financial situation and you're not quite sure what to do. Ask Gregory. Ask Gregory is our new podcast with these financial topics broken down into specific little chunks. So if you have a financial situation or you just want to learn more about money, Ask Gregory. Find the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app or wherever you get podcasts. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. The firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government or any government agency.
Was to understand what might come next with respect to this committee's opportunity and motivation to bring forward pilots and other military individuals like the Air Force who want to step on the gas. That just won't happen. I know that's not going to happen. But what these individuals might do to bring forward real witnesses, I'm talking witnesses like Robert Salas, okay? And I'm talking about people who know what they're talking about, Stephen Bassett. These individuals who have a real grounding in this have an opportunity to become part of this narrative. And I think this is just a beginning and not the end of these hearings.
So let me add, Victor, that Andre Carson and Brittany Thompson have been very vocal about the Congress passed a law, and they intend to see it. They intend to see the law followed. And it is clear to me, given the way the office has been constituted, that there's nothing but foot dragging going on, that the people that are really holding the secrets are fighting like hell inside to keep the secrets from coming out. So they put forward 2 people from the Pentagon to the committee, and I expect them to receive something of a raking over the coals. But one thing that could surprise us is unexpected witnesses. That would be awesome. If we had unexpected witnesses during tomorrow's meeting, so I already know that Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon are up on the Hill. Okay, so we really want to be on at 9 a.m. Eastern on YouTube listening to these hearings. Dave?
Well, gentlemen, we got 55 seconds before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour, and we got a power panel of experts tonight in many different fields, all breaking down the UFO world. And when we come back, guys, I want to get seriously into what we can expect tomorrow. And from a media standpoint, from people like all of us who are interested in what is going on. Does the word aliens come up? Does the word not of this world come up? We need to know what is going on. And we have a power panel for everybody out there tonight. From Zealand Communications, we have Victor Vigiani, based out of Toronto, Ontario, based out of Vancouver, British Columbia, journalism expert, Bruce Claggett from BFC Communications. We have Dr. Bob McGuire, a.k.a. Science Bob, here from Spaced Out Radio, and, of course, his time with the United States government. Author and researcher Michael Huntington is here, and he is great at what he does. And from MUFON's board of directors, Tom Whitmore, who needs to grow his mustache once again. We'll be back with exciting times. What happens at U.S. congressional hearings next on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear, gentlemen.
Very cool.
I could grow a mustache, Dave, but you wouldn't be able to see it.
That's all I got left. That's all I got left.
I walked in the barber shop today, and the barber gave me a funny look.
Yeah, I would really like to find out why Moultrie and Bray were chosen.
So because they aren't exposed to the core secrets, so they can go up there and say what they want, and it will not be a lie.
But don't you think the committee might know that?
I'm expecting a boatload. We're off air, right?
Well, I mean, YouTube can still hear us.
I'm expecting a shitload of pushback.
Oh yeah. You can swear during the break. That's fine. Yeah, that's allowed. Thank you, Cindy, for that amazing super chat, along with Ken, Lori, Doug, D. Cohen, Bob, Pascal, Lucy Bell, and Sally. We really appreciate the love and support. It's a good way to support what we do on this show, so thank you so much. And, gentlemen, we can carry on some conversation here. We got a few minutes to go before we got to come back.
Oh, there's just so many levels of this whole conversation. It's coming forward in the midst of global chaos. That's a question that really I need to ask. Is you've got the Ukraine happening, the possibility of a nuclear exchange happening. You've got the January 6th investigations coming up in June. Instability in the Middle East. How is this issue coming forward in the way that it is? Does it have a power or a stability within itself to poke through all of that chaos and become a real issue within the mainstream media? That's the question that I really want to ask.
I would say that at least at a minimum, we're dealing with an issue of national security concern and air safety. So, the politicians that are involved with this, they sort of have at least a safety stance, right?
For
They
sure.
can at least
Oh, yeah.
say that we're looking at this, as a security issue, as a safety issue, because if there are unknowns flying around, regardless of where they're from, regardless of what they are, if they're man-made drones, foreign drones, natural phenomena, or whatever, it's something that we should know about. So I think at least on that level, the hearings are going to have that element. It's going to deal with, air safety. And I don't know if we'll hear the word aliens, but we will certainly hear the word unknown a lot.
Yeah, I think what you're alluding to is the fact that there are a multiple number of platforms that this issue could become a huge mainstream issue with respect to what you just mentioned. In terms of air safety and all of that, and then you've got the idea of technology, these arcane technologies that are coming forward. My question is, what are the platforms that will make sense to media, that will make it as bright and shiny as someone alluded to earlier, that will make it relevant news to everybody, not just the people like you, like us right now, who are concerned about it.
I would love to see like Lieutenant Graves and a couple of military pilots talk about the near mid-air collisions or during the Teddy Roosevelt training. And I'd like to see some civilian aircraft pilots and FAA people come in and talk about the near misses that have happened like 10 times a month.
Yeah.
If we get that stuff, the American people will wake up.
But as Victor was saying, is that going to happen here? I don't think so. I think if there are subsequent hearings, they will probably take place in other committees. I think a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing probably would have more cachet, and that's where you would want more powerhouse players. And an FAA Safety Committee hearing,
well, maybe
maybe
the House hearing is a trial balloon for the Senate.
Exactly.
What kind of reaction they get?
Yeah, precisely.
Well, and Warner and Rubio, and they're both up for re-election. And Gillibrand right now is carrying a ton of the water on this issue to insulate them from any blowback there is on this issue during their re-election. But the two of them, they are buddies with Chris Mellon. He worked for them when he was as a staffer on Mark Warner's committee. And so I'm just telling you that they're behind it. But of course, we got to get past the silly season for elections.
All right, gentlemen, we got 25 seconds. Tom, a message from the Lip Blade down below. One rule to grow a mustache: when in doubt, grow it out. And that's all I got to say on that. And don't argue with it, Tom. Just let it flow, buddy. Just let it flow. Thank you to all the veterans who have tuned into this show tonight. We much love and appreciate everything you've done. Here we go with the second half hour. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder, if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read up on Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with a power panel leading up to the U.S. congressional hearings on UFOs slated for the morning in Washington, D.C. Joining us tonight, Dr. Bob McGuire, former member of the CIA from MUFON, Mr. Tom Whitmore, Michael Huntington. He is an author and researcher in this field. journalism and communication specialist Bruce Claggett and Victor Vigiani from Toronto Zealand Communications. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Let's hit it right off the bat. And Bruce, we're going to start with you on this one. I know that you are more following the professional journalism coverage of this story, but what makes the story during these public hearings? Is it about more UFOs over the airfields and military aviation places, or do we need something more for the government or somebody to mention that these are not of this world?
Well, two different things. First of all, you need to have this hearing staffed by journalists who are actually looking for something that's going to amount to a story that's going to cut right through the news cycle. If you haven't noticed, there is a war going on right now. And is this the number one story in D.C.? Nope. Is it one of the big stories in D.C.? Yes, absolutely. How do you bump it up? So that's going to be one of the big things. And is it going to happen tomorrow? Or is tomorrow going to be the first stage of opening up more questions for the future? And I think that's what we're going to end up seeing tomorrow. So when it comes down to what could be discussed, yes, there are two different possibilities. Is it something that amounts to security, whether it's military security or just aviation security? There is an unknown, and that has to be addressed. So that makes it news in itself. Anytime you talk about UFOs, as I said before, you're going to get something that amounts to a keen interest because it is the unusual. It's another one of those little tick boxes on the is it newsworthy type thing. And yes, it does tick it off. So yes, anything that's different or unusual should make it newsworthy.
Bruce,
now
I want to cut you off right there because a lot of our public who listens to this type of programming does not trust the mainstream media. Okay, for whatever reason, we're not going to get into that big debate.
Yep.
But there's always been a lack of press, a lack of coverage regarding the UFO phenomena. Quickly, in like 2 minutes or less here, explain to us from a newsroom standpoint why this story has always seemed to fall on deaf ears.
It comes down to validation. And people, when they see or hear something that is different, perhaps a little disconcerting, want to have somebody that's going to explain it who they trust. Who are those validators? For people that are in the know, it's going to be a little bit different than the general public. The general public is looking to leaders to come forward, the politicians that they trust, who say, hey, this is something. And once you start to bring in the validators, then it becomes more of a news story that the mainstream media kind of gravitates toward. That's if you want to follow the mainstream media. Remember, we're in 2022. Mainstream media is not the be-all and end-all. I'm not saying it's a mainstream media is great. I'm mainstream media. But there is a lot of other media that is specialized with experts who really can get into the knowledge behind these stories. And where you want to take people is a general mass audience into a specific area when they get that interest level. Start with the mainstream media, get people curious, get them Google searching and looking for the experts, the type of people that we have on the panel tonight, Dave.
Exactly. Thank you so much for that, Bruce. Let's go to Michael Huntington here for a second, because there's a big debate on whether we will get anything or whether this is going to be a big foobar, much like the DIA report was last June 25th when it came out. And we heard about, 144 cases, 143 were unexplained. I don't know if you had a good laugh like I did when it came down to that one report that was explained was a weather balloon. Okay, I saw the humor in that. I still think there was humor in that. But what do we need out of this public hearing?
Well, that's sort of the big question with all this. This, in a lot of ways, is political theater. Congress as a body can get these questions answered in private if they want. They can probably get them answered more honestly in private, honestly, and there will be, a private component to this. This is not a full open hearing. I think it's going to be sort of a mixture with this, and whether or not it goes past one day, that's sort of an open question. It might go to two. Traditionally they will, divide up the speakers or whatnot. So, this might be more of a, politicians calling the the military and the intel to the carpet and demanding some answers. And I think what we'll get is a lot of air safety and national security stuff out of this. I don't think we're going to get big disclosure revelations. We're not going to get any confirmation, as a lot of people would want. A lot of people are wanting different things out of this, and there's a lot of different expectations. Some people have big expectations. There are UFO Twitter and disclosure activists that are literally celebrating this event almost as if it was like, Christmas or the Super Bowl, when in actuality it's a subcommittee hearing, on this topic. And that makes it interesting. What are we going to get out of this? I don't think we're going to get, any big sort of sweeping things. I think, as the other panelists have said, this is going to be sort of like a template. It's going to be, how will this play out? How will the media deal with this? How will the military intelligence community, how are they going to answer some of these concerns? What is their focus? Are they going to be responsive to what people are wanting, which is more information? What about the other encounters within that 144? Maybe some of these committee members, in secret, they've already got some, more information on that. The public doesn't. Whether or not we will find out more information, that's sort of up in the air. But I think at a basic level, this is going to be, a public relations PR sort of event for this subject. And I think it was sort of designed that way. This all came about from lobbying efforts over the past couple of years. And this sort of has been orchestrated in a lot of ways. From 2017 to this point, the intention for a lot of the activists, Mellon and Elizondo, DeLong, and a lot of the other people have been moving towards this direction to have public hearings, because they are validating in a way. They keep the subject in the media, and they promote the subject's legitimacy as a subject, in the limelight. It's a PR thing to get people interested and more activist and demanding, within this subject. So there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of different agendas at play. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. It's certainly not going to be the day of disclosure or the day of confirmation. It is not going to be that.
Well, let's get right to Tom Whitmore here. Bob, I'm saving you for last because I know you're going to go and drop the gloves on this. But Tom Whitmore, you've seen it from both sides here because you're highly involved with MUFON. MUFON has had discussions in the past with various groups and insiders from every walk of life regarding this subject. What do you think we can expect tomorrow during the congressional hearings?
There are two things that I hope will have happened, Dave. I'm hoping that one or more of the committee members have read Brian Bender's article that came out on Politico, and I hope that they've read the very, very pointed questions that Chris Mellon put together. And if they go by those two, they have some very good questions they can ask these DOD guys. For example, Brian Bender quoted someone saying that they want to treat all UAPs as air trash. They can ask them that. Are you all going to treat all UAPs as air trash? Another quote out of there is, it's going to be a small operation with a lead and two officials. That's what they're trying to get away with. I think that the Congress people can ask, they can refer directly to these articles and these questions and just point them right at these guys and get them on the record to see what they say. Now, Mellon came up with some very, very pointed information. For example, and I'll go over to John Kirby, the Pentagon spokesman, and he's on the record as saying that, quote, "We are absolutely committed to being as transparent as we can with the American people about UAPs." Then the Navy chief of intelligence, who's going to be at the hearing tomorrow, he wrote out a directive that information obtained in whatever form and whatever source involving UAPs is classified. So we have a direct contradiction there. I'd like to see the Congress people confront them with these issues, and there are other very, very important issues that are listed here.
Very true. Okay, let's get over to Victor Vigiani. I know you've been an activist for a long time, but there is a reality that comes down to what the public will learn as of these hearings. Victor, what do you hope is slated, but what is the reality of what will come down?
Night.
Your microphone is clicking out. There you go.
Sorry. I think what the reality is, David, is that you've got to put this whole thing in a really, really broad context since 2017 and even before, but 2007.
Ask Gregory is a financial podcast from the guys who bring you Winning at Life with Gregory Riggs. Something that's come up is if you're not at your old job, maybe your 401k shouldn't be either. But do you really know why we say that? Ask Gregory is our new podcast with financial topics broken down into specific little chunks. So if you have a financial situation or you just want to learn more about money, ask Gregory. Find the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app or wherever you get podcasts. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. The firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government or any government agency.
Ask Gregory is a financial podcast from the guys who bring you Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. Learn the ins and outs, do's, don'ts, rules, and tools of the financial world. So if you have a financial situation or you just want to learn more about money, ask Gregory. Find the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app or wherever you get your podcast. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. The firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government or any government agency.
17 to me was, if you look at it in religious terms, the Old and the New Testament. Everything before 2017, I consider the Old Testament of everything. But then 2017 hit, and then now you've got the New Testament of what's going on. And that is such a revolutionary beginning to what we see right now. And this evolution of things since 2017 is really, really instructive. And I think we have to pay attention to how it's evolved since 2017. And I think we've all alluded to things, beginning with the New York Times article with Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean and Helena Cooper. That began the New Testament of all of this. And that evolution is extremely important in understanding what's happening tomorrow morning. And all of the things that came about, after 2017 are so instructive, and they are sort of building blocks as to where we're going. None of the information that I think that we've got since 2017 is the be-all and the end-all of this information. But I think it's going to evolve to a point where, as been alluded to, where the mainstream media will recognize this issue as something that is extremely important, much like what happened with Robert Bigelow on 60 Minutes. I think it was in 2021, I believe it is, in May, when he came forward on 60 Minutes and said that he doesn't care whether or not people believe him that these things are extraterrestrial. He doesn't care about that. And that's the kind of attitude that I think that the people who really believe in this issue have to put it forward. And once those kinds of issues come into play within the hearing settings that's going to happen tomorrow, then eventually the evolution of this issue will become more and more salient, one brick at a time, within the general public and the mainstream media. So what we're witnessing here is an evolutionary kind of process, not just a big explosion of information and a big, huge reveal. So I think that's what we're part of right now. And I think we have to understand that and be careful with it, not expect too much, but look at it as a building block, as an evolution of information, rather than a big sort of huge reveal that everyone's going to know everything about the off-world civilizations that are visiting us. And that's the next step in all of this.
Science Bob, there's a lot of questioning and conjecture that kind of goes into a hearing like this as to why it's necessary, who's putting it on, why are they putting it on, how do we know that this is going to be the right way for this to be happening for not only the American public, but for the world as well, because UFOs are a world topic and not just an American issue. We'll get you to unmute yourself there, Bob.
Sorry about that. We do know that multiple members of the committee, like all of these committees, subcommittee meetings, when they call them, they get a preview of what they're going to hear and interact with these people from the Pentagon. And they're pissed off. Now, they're not saying pissed off, but they are pissed off because they're publicly commenting about the crap they're hearing. So I'm expecting them to get some roasting over the coals of why they're not implementing the actual law that has been passed in the National Defense Authorization Act, and how much funding is going in. Are they going to get more than 2 people? Are they going to get enough? Are they going to get read into all the compartments? I'm expecting the Congress critters like Schiff, Thompson, Andre Carson, and several of the Republicans. It's absolutely across the political spectrum. They are not going to let them get away with a nothing burger. And what we hope is it's pointed. We hope it's pointed questions about the poor performance of preparing the committee that's gone today so far, that they're publicly complaining about. And Schiff is the chairman of the House Select Committee on Intelligence, and he is pounding his fist saying the American public has a right to know, and we passed the law that says so. Okay, so we just have to hope they get a little put back on their heels. And when they get a little put back on their heels, somebody really craftily shoves a shiv in and gets something out of them. And there are a bunch of those people on that committee that are very good at that. And they you can expect it to be attempted. We'll have to see how well they do. But I want one thing and one thing only. They do not come from Earth as far as we know. If I get that, the rest of it I don't care.
Who else is on the committee? I don't know the rest of the committee.
I don't know all of them, but I've named you the important people. Andre Carson is the chairman of the subcommittee. Adam Schiff is the head of the House Select Committee on Intelligence.
Right.
And there's a Republican minority members, and all of them are important people. They know the nation's secrets, and so they are pushing hard, and they're tired of being lied to. They're tired of it.
I want to bring in Bruce Claggett here because he does have to go at the top of the hour here. Bruce, normally during these types of political hearings, there is always the next day follow-up where there's information that's leaked. All right, can we expect information on this subject to be leaked? Or because it is highly sensitive and they are going to probably try and push this back into a defensive mode for the military, do you see it being sealed right up?
Oh, no, well, it depends who you talk to. And when you're talking about a leak from whom and to whom, I would imagine that there will be some after show in this. It doesn't matter if you're in the Canadian circle or in the U.S. circle. Politicians tend to act the same way, and people that follow them tend to look for complete candor. And if there is a lack of candor, and if people are not being satisfied, information will end up being leaked out, and they'll probably end up leaking it out to media that's following this in the know. And then something very interesting can start to happen, and that's where the mainstream media will follow some of the key media that are following this every single day and probably pick up on the stories. That's how it plays out. So when you have bombshells that come out or don't come out, people who are not being, and we know this, it's you have to tell the truth in the committee or before a congressional committee. That is the law. But to what degree are you going to be in the know, and to what degree are you going to be completely candid? And if you're not, people are not going to be satisfied. There will be follow-up. Short answer, leaks, yes, especially if there's stuff that needs to come out that did not.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. And we got 3 minutes to go. Michael Huntington, I want to give you the final words to this half hour as we prepare to go into hour number 2. I mean, you're somebody who's going to be following this intently like all of us are in the morning. When you look at the way the media has to portray this, as a writer yourself, as a researcher yourself, how do we need this covered?
Well, how we need it covered and how the media is going to cover it is going to be two different things. Largely, the mainstream media sort of sees this as, kind of a goof. There's that, the full broad spectrum of media sort of sees this as, like a human interest sort of thing. I think so far, aside from like Politico and people that are into the subject, it's sort of been, oh, ain't that interesting? We're having UFO hearings. That's sort of been the extent thus far of the press. What I would like to see is I'd like to see, it all laid out. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think there will be some evasion, mostly because I think there's a lot of non-answers. I think there's a lot that they don't know, especially the people that are going to be speaking. And I think a lot of this will also be moved to the private, the secret hearing that is going to occur after this. And I think that's where a lot of some of the answers that weren't answered, the non-answers, because you can't lie to Congress, but you can give them a political non-answer. You can sort of lie by omission. You can leave things out. You can not say things. You can just claim ignorance. There's a lot of different ways to avoid answering a question, and we want questions answered. And there's a broad spectrum of what those questions are. Some of us want to know, what's the deal with the cover-up? Is there a cover-up? Do you know about, the big question, the big question, are there aliens? Well, do we have bodies, flying saucers, that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. So, we all want to know that as we got about 45 seconds here. Bob, I'm going to bring you back here in the next hour here. But one of the things that I want to hear some journalists ask, I want to hear, why now? What is the importance of this? Those two questions have not been asked and have not been answered properly. Why is it all of a sudden UFOs are a major hot-button topic for the U.S. government? There has to be something more than just they're in our airspace, whatever it is. And that is the question that we need the media to be focusing on going into this. We get the answers to that. It opens up every Pandora's box that is out there regarding unidentified aerial phenomena. We have the panel for another hour. Bruce Claggett, we're going to say goodnight to you. Thank you so much. Michael Huntington, author, researcher. From Zealand Communications, Victor Vigiani. Dr. Bob McGuire. And from MUFON, Tom Whitmore. We call him Uncle Tom around here. We love him. Spaced Out Radio continues with Hour 2 next. Thank you, Bruce.
Is Bruce still
thanks,
there?
guy.
Yeah, except he can't grow a mustache.
hey, Bruce.
Yes.
Victor here. I really appreciate your understanding of the media stuff in this, and it's really you have a very incisive way of looking at what makes news, and I think we need to really pursue that angle on this. And I'm not sure exactly how.
In my comments, the first part of the half hour when I get to my comments, I'm going to demonstrate to the audience
guys.
how the media is manipulated by the Pentagon in using the very article Tom brought up.
Yep.
I'm going to demonstrate what happens.
Great.
And you can go look for yourself when I'm done telling the story of Tom's article.
Good.
You mean in the next hour?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the next hour.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do-
you brought it
do
up.
tell.
I'm going to show you what happened.
Okay.
Gentlemen, thanks so much. Thanks for having me on. You guys are great experts in your field. I hope to come back and play in your field again.
Yeah,
It was always fun, Bruce. Take care.
Nice to meet you.
we need to do this
Nice to
again,
meet you.
Bruce.
Yeah,
Excellent.
let's do that,
Thank you.
Victor.
For
yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Good to meet you, Bruce.
Good to meet you.
Bob, I want to ask you a question.
Yep.
Can the congressional committees go into closed session and then subpoena these pilots and anybody they want
Yep.
and make them testify?
Yeah, but look, there's a calendar and there's a schedule. They're going to stick to the schedule, especially for this first one. And I agree with Victor and others. This is mostly a trial balloon, but I just want one thing for them to admit they do not believe it's from Earth. If I get that, I'm a happy camper.
And that leads to the question, which case are we talking about? Are we talking about every event over the course of history? Or are we talking about just military?
We need to not allow them. We need to not allow them to pull off the bullshit they're trying to do now, which is try to define UAP history as beginning in 2004.
Yeah,
Bob,
we can't go there with everything. Yeah, we can't go there with everything. Yeah.
What's the probability that these two guys,
know the history?
Ron Moultrie and Scott Bray, what's the
do
probability that they're going to say that they're not from Earth?
Zero. They know they're coming because they know essentially zero.
So what's the probability that they're going to say they're not from Earth?
Well, somebody will have written a position paper that will constrain what they can say about their origin. I am certain origin is going to be asked about. I'm certain science and technology that has been brought to bear on this is going to be asked about. And the description of the office and its current setup and what access they're being given are going to be asked about. I'm telling you, this committee has been very well prepped by Elizondo, Mellon, et al.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope they get after it.
Well, I think really what it is, it's a party starter in a lot of ways. Yeah. It really is. And in some ways, I applaud the way they're managing it. And think of it, I suppose, on the other side of the coin, if they would have started with, let's say, anybody who has any really deep inside information on this with respect to a researcher like someone like Stephen Bassett or Richard Dolan or any of these researchers who've done decades of work, if they would have started with those individuals, I think that would have been a mistake. I'm not sure, but I think it might have been. It might have been too much for the committee to handle. So I think what they're doing is they're starting on the ground floor with people that can kind of contribute a little bit and make sort of these doors open gradually for how these things might unfold. Because eventually, if they're going to deal with this, they're going to have to admit that this is of off-world origin. There's just no doubt in anybody's mind. And I think even in the back rooms of the Air Force and the Navy, because the Navy's known about this for a long, long time, they know this is of
so does the Air
off-world
Force.
origin. So that to me is the given here. So where do we go from there?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, what are the excuses for naming it? That it's off world. I mean, history, that's a big one. But like Elizondo said on this show, there are huge concerns, guys. So we got about a minute to go. There are huge concerns about the implications of all of this. And I think that's what's scaring people is what is the implications to the public. Now, for the better part of 2 years, we have been talking about that. Whether it's whether it's the financial aspect of everything. What's it going to do to the markets? What's it going to do to the military-industrial complex? What's it going to do to religion? And those who...
We've been talking about that since the Robertson panel. That's been around. What effects would, disclosure, confirmation have upon humanity?
Absolutely. Gentlemen, hold on right there, because we're going to come back. I want to say thank you so much to our super chatters tonight. Bob T, Excalipurful, Cindy, Ken, Lori, Doug, D. Cohen, Bob, Pascal, Lucy Bell, and Sally for the amazing super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. We're going to get going here with the panel as we continue. We got them for another 1 hour here on the show, and then we're going to have a panel discussion tomorrow night as well with Nicole Sackich, Science Bob, Chris Sharp, and Christina Gomez. Here we go, hour 2.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Betel. Betel is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with our panel leading up to the U.S. congressional hearings on UFOs. Joining us tonight, Dr. Bob McGuire, former CIA and former everything. This man knows what's going on behind the scenes in Washington, D.C. From MUFON's Board of Directors, Tom Whitmore. Researcher and author, Michael Huntington. And from Zealand Communications, Canadian activist Victor Vigiani. Now, gentlemen, right before the break, I mentioned about the fact that there is going to be a lot playing out here, and there's going to be a lot of people hoping that Christmas comes early when it comes to the UFO world. However, there is a very big possibility that it turns into what we like to say a nothing burger regarding this subject. We saw it with the initial DIA report back on June 25th, 2021. Victor, I want to start with you on this one, if you don't mind. There's a big chance that many of us are going to be disappointed. Should we be preparing for the worst and hope for the best?
Well, yeah, I think that's a very good way to look at it. With respect to, let's divide the narrative here. With respect to individuals like us, people who've been in touch with this for so long and so intently, it spans 30, 40 years among all of us. We have certain expectations that might come into play. And I think we all recognize, my expectations and the expectations of everyone here on the panel, and those of us within the UFO, UAP research community, we have a certain set of expectations, and they are much, much higher than the general public. The expectations among the uninformed media, the uninformed media, and the sort of the newbie kind of public awareness on this, their level of expectation is so much different than ours. So when this issue does get brought forward, there's going to be 2 or 3 different ways of how it will be interpreted. And on one level, it's going to be a massive disappointment. at one.
Ask Gregory is a financial podcast from the guys who bring you Winning at Life with Gregory Riggs. Something that's come up is, if you're not at your old job, maybe your 401k shouldn't be either. But do you really know why we say that? Ask Gregory is our new podcast with financial topics broken down into specific little chunks. So if you have a financial situation or you just want to learn more about money, ask Gregory. Find the Ask Gregory podcast on the Winning at Life app or wherever you get podcasts. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC. The firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government or any government agency.
Maybe it's time to make the connection with California Psychics. If it's not the best psychic reading you've ever had, it's free. Visit CaliforniaPsychics.com or download the free California Psychics app and set up an account today starting at only $1 per minute for new customers.
End of the spectrum. But on the other end of the spectrum, if people in the general media pay attention to it and people that plug into it that are, newbies within all of this, this could be like, holy smoke, how long has this been going on and why don't I know about it? They're at the very beginning of the race here. We are way ahead of the starting line. So the way this information will be brought forward within the media is going to be mixed. So MSNBC will look at it in one way. CBS will look at it in another way. So it'll be a conglomeration of disappointments, I guess is what I'm trying to say, David, to you. So that's what I think we can expect. There's not going to be any big revelations, but it will be a step in the next evolution of how this information will be crafted. Interesting word, crafted, to be brought forward, A, within the intelligence community, B, within the political system, and C, within the media institutions. So there'll be 3 or 4 different ways of this information being interpreted. So let's not be disappointed with this. Those who are listening to us right now who know not too much about this, you have to listen to it very, very carefully and not swallow all of the pills. Those of us that know all of this information have to swallow the pills and digest them in the right way so that they're framed in a sense so that it can make sense to everybody. And that's what our job is.
Wonderful.
We have to make sense of this for everybody. And that's a big responsibility that we have.
Wonderful. So what you're saying is I'm still going to look overweight after this, so I appreciate that.
I guess so.
Dr. Bob McGuire, we bring you in here, Science Bob, because, I know what you're looking for. You want somebody to say, not of this earth. That is the key trigger for you. But there is a chance that we're going to be disappointed as a collective whole on this, much like everybody was back with the DIA report. Now, for you, looking into this, you see this with different eyes because you're able to read between the lines being on those insider panels for as long as you were. How do we take anything positive out of what these hearings are if we are shut out of information?
So you just want to see some forward motion, and for each of us there'll be different levels of satisfaction with the forward motion. Tom pointed out Brian Bender's article in the previous segment, and it was really hard hitting. It was Skull and Bones Society is controlling all of this. It's a bunch of this and that and the other, and we're really going to knife through. And over the day, Tom, don't refresh before you pull it out because now it has 0 effing teeth in it. 0. The teeth have been completely taken out of the article, and now it's a bunch of milquetoast pablum. And so this is the kind of pressure that is being brought to bear to try to keep a lot of this stuff sequestered to the point where, even a big reporter like Brian Bender can succumb to the pressure. And the pressure will come way up top at Politico and be passed down to Bender because he won't do this willingly. He'll be ordered to by an editor, and it'll come from on top.
Explain that again. Run that by me again.
Okay, so today, Brian Bender wrote an article.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and if you go refresh it, all of the teeth are gone.
Really?
It's been edited and replaced with a piece of pablum. And this is the process.
Already?
Oh, yeah. It's getting all the skull and bones, all the secret society, all these bad guys trying to undermine the war going on in the Pentagon and the intelligence community, totally gone from the article.
Wow. Wow.
So we can expect not to get a tremendous amount. We want to see forward motion. And if we just get, we do not believe they come from Earth, I'll be a happy camper.
All right, Andrew, let's bring you in here. Or, pardon me, Michael, let's bring you in here for this because, I mean, you are somebody who is continuously monitoring every news outlet and everything regarding this story. As you said, you know, we're all UFO geeks when it comes down to it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this field. There is a big chance for disappointment, but there is a big chance that we could get more morsels of information to add to the puzzle pieces that have already been laid out. For you, what would be a catalyst of good information coming out of this?
Well, yeah, there are different expectations, certainly. You know, for me, good information, I would like to know more about what the interpretations were on some of those unknown cases. A few weeks ago, or within this last week, there was a question going around Twitter, like, what question would you ask, you know, during this hearing? If you could have, you know, the microphone, so to speak. And, you know, a lot of people wanted the big questions answered. You know, do we have aliens? You know, is that a reality? Is the, you know, the classic view of a conspiracy cover up, you know, a la Roswell ever since, you know, MJ-12 type stuff. Is there any sort of reality to that? There's people that have that expectation. You know, for me, I want information on cases, you know. I don't think this will be necessarily anything. It's certainly going to be historic within the subject. Everything is historic, you know, within the subject, so to speak. And we can get data from everything, you know, even the non-answers. So, you know, it's of benefit. Now, younger people that have gotten into the subject, you know, since 2017, you know, since those media events have gotten a lot of people interested into the subject, their expectations are different than us who've, you know, been in the subject for 40 plus years. To them, this is already sort of a victory. Just the mere fact that we have politicians and intel people talking about the subject publicly, it works for these younger activist type of people because it, you know, every time it's within the media, it's good for the subject in their estimation because they are oriented towards, you know, the public relations, the public persuasion sort of aspect to it. They feel that, you know, the bigger, you know, the pool, so to speak, the bigger the wave you will get for information down the line, you know. So, and I think they look at things incrementally. So, to them, it's already a victory. There's already people opening beers and talking about, you know, celebrating, you know, when we don't even know what's going to happen yet. Certainly, some people will be disappointed, but I'm going to watch it. I will get something out of it in any case. We will get some information, even non-information, as I've said, will be information. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes.
All right, Tom Whitmore, let's bring you in here on this one because, you know, there are going to be ups, there are going to be downs, there are going to be people who feel that they are disappointed in what's going on with these hearings. People are going to be raging from UFO Twitter at their screen saying, ask this question. Why are you not asking this question? You know, we're going to get a lot of emotion built up through this, you know, when the hearings start until they end, you know, but should we be this emotionally connected and involved in this subject?
Well, as UFO people, we're in a special interest bubble. And we can see outside the bubble, but we can't think outside the bubble because we're so invested in the subject. And no offense to any religion, but I think psychologically we're similar to born-again and evangelical Christians that are expecting the second coming of Christ at any time. And we've raised our expectations so high that we set ourselves up for disappointment. I'll tell you what, if I was on that committee, here's what I'd do. I'd ask this question. Has the government or contractors or subcontractors, either now or in the past, been in possession of anomalous vehicles or biological entities, or been in communication at any time with any groups of non-human origin?
Oh, that's a tough question. Look,
wow.
Just
not that I'm aware of, Congressman.
Yeah,
I
but I mean,
I plead the fifth.
We have our wish list. That's my wish list. And that's a direct question. It's either yes or no.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how many hours of video footage do you have in totality? I would go for a specific.
Oh yeah.
Very specific. If we're asking, do aliens exist? Do we have some at Area 51? I don't think we're getting an answer at all. And there are people that want that question, those sort of questions asked, but it's not going to happen.
I don't think it happens either. Go ahead, Tom.
I don't know if we're going to get a nothing burger, but I think we're going to get a veggie burger.
I don't know what's worse in that opinion. But nonetheless, we need something to go on. There is going to be something. Bob, who do we expect to be asking some actual hard-hitting questions in this? Because I believe I'm correct when I say this. Congressman Tim Burchett, who has been extremely vocal in the media recently regarding this subject, has basically come out and said, look, I know things. We need these congressional hearings to have everything come out in public from Roswell on to today. He's the first politician to come out and say we need full, unrepented disclosure on the UFO files. And yet he's not even going to be a part of the hearings. As far as
he's not on the committee.
Well, he's
not on the House Select Committee on Intelligence. But he is a member of more minor committees.
But what I'm asking is, do we have somebody, or could we potentially have somebody on the panel for this who can ask those tough questions?
I believe Andre Carson and Benny Thompson are fully capable of asking those questions, but they are going to have heard through their staffers, directly and indirectly, nonstop remarks about why they shouldn't. And we'll have to decide whether they want to listen or not. Remember one thing. Every member of the House is up for re-election right now. And that is all that's at the front of their minds, besides getting something out of this committee.
Maybe they run the risk of being accused of being kooks.
Is there a potential, gentlemen, and anybody feel free to jump in on this, that we could see these questions edited for the fact of national security? So somebody who is on that panel, like Andre Carson, could have a list of questions that he may want to ask, but somebody behind the scenes saying, look, that one's not for public. Could that happen?
Yeah, because the staffers are going to write the questions, and they will have been informed by the Pentagon and the DNI.
And there will be a closed portion of this. So, you may hear the words, that's something that we should address in the closed session, or the closed hearing. So,
yeah, they'd pretty much have to figure out which ones they'd ask in open session and which they could ask in closed session.
What do you think the response from people like Rubio and Gillibrand and Gallego might be to what may transpire tomorrow?
Well, if they get all fired up, they can call a Senate. They can call a Senate hearing and then drag them back. But we are so near the end of the season because August it's over. All congressional action is over in August because all they're going to be doing is running for re-election.
Okay.
Is this the type of topic that could cost someone an election in the fall?
It depends on the district. It really does. So Burchett, Burchett's going around talking to his supporters and bringing his billionaire backers to meetings to make sure he's not going to offend all of his Christian brethren who elect him from a very conservative district in Tennessee. But he's not on this committee, so I think he's safe. But there are other people that are in border districts where it's very iffy if the Republican or the Democrat will win. I think they're going to be hyper cautious because they always are.
Tom?
I don't think it's going to be a big issue other than,
I agree.
Like you said, in close races, it might be used by the opposition in order to, label them as some sort of kook. We've seen that in politics in the past, but I don't think it's not really something that I think too many politicians are willing to expend a lot of political capital on.
Yeah. There's no reason to.
Or risk, their career on. But they do have the out of at least looking at this from a national security and public safety stand.
That the public is very, very interested in this topic, at least some.
Yes.
Or Tucker Carlson wouldn't have it on regularly.
Right.
Very true. Very true. But outside of Tucker Carlson and what we've seen with the Politico and other online news agencies, we really haven't seen a real rush to get into this subject and even talk about the hearings. I mean, this is a little bit disappointing leading up. Is it not, Victor?
Well, I think that, I think you're right, because the narrative that's come about because of things that happened in 2017. I know I continue to go back to that point of reference. I think what's happening here is, once again, I'll repeat, it's an evolution of ideas about this whole issue. And if the individuals that are running for elections in the United States and all the machinations of what elections can bring about, if this particular hearing and subsequent hearings between now and whenever Congress has come to some sort of closure, if the idea of technologies, the new technologies that may be brought forward because of the off-world origins of these things, if we can make that leap with respect to new technologies and all the things that are happening within the fossil fuel industry, if that issue can be raised somehow, I know right now that's not really where things are at, but eventually the technology behind what these craft can do with respect to their propulsion systems and energy sources, if that issue can somehow worm its way through all of this narrative and come to the forefront within the public domain, I think the new technologies that may be introduced through all of this, the whole machinations of everything, I think it could introduce a new set of discussion points about what this issue is all about. It's much like a driveway. You pave a driveway, and you get it all nice and finished. You pat all the tar down, and in the spring, a dandelion pops up, in the driveway. Somehow gets through all the tar, and the weed comes up, and it's sitting there. It's the only weed there, and that's what's going to happen if the issue of technologies comes to play with respect to climate change and all of these other issues. So there's so many separate issues that may come forward because of all of these discussions. And I think, in my opinion, the new technologies is the number one thing that could change the entire narrative about what this is all about.
Well, we got 45 seconds, Tom. Let's get your final words here.
Well, I hope and I wish that we had better technologies, but I think we're getting ahead of the story there because we have a tendency to want the spacemen, the aliens, to bail us out and fix our problems for us. And we haven't even gotten to the point yet to where people in authority will admit that these UAPs or UFOs are of otherworldly origin. And I think we need to get there first, and then maybe we can go on to the next step. Now, we don't know what those technologies are. We suspect that some of these companies like Lockheed and some of these aerospace companies may be working on that, but we don't really even know what those technologies are.
All right, gentlemen, we got you for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio, and we're going to continue on with the heavy talk regarding the timeline as the hours tick down to the first U.S. congressional hearings regarding UFOs in over 50 years. We got Tom Whitmore, we have Michael Huntington, we have Victor Vigiani and Dr. Bob McGuire breaking it all down for us on Spaced Out Radio.
Tom, you don't think the technology stuff is I agree with you that it's a little bit ahead of the curve, but don't you think that's the kernel of the issue here? Eventually, what's going to happen is as to how these things move and come and go.
Well, it could be at some point in the future, but you'd have to be in possession of a vehicle or a machinery that has those capabilities first. Now, I've suspected for years, and a lot of people in my realm believe that somebody has that somewhere. It's either been in the U.S. government or it's been subcontracted out, to these aerospace companies. But we don't actually know that. We haven't had confirmation of it. And if they do have that on hand, we don't know how far they've gotten in understanding it or being able to use it. For example, they may even theoretically understand how it works, but they can't manufacture it. Maybe the manufacturing capabilities are beyond our abilities. So, I just take a more cautious approach about that.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, I think Victor's right, at least on some level. Amongst, 2017 converts, younger activist sort of people, that is a main focus to a lot of them. Aside from, the big disclosure, activism, a lot of them are starting with the preset that aliens are visiting and we probably do have craft and we've been reverse engineering them. And to them, since that has happened in their mind, or maybe even in reality, what they want is, the next generation of people into this subject, the next generation of ufologists, so to speak. They want that.
It's official. Summer is almost here. The sun is getting brighter, the days are getting longer, and your lawn is ready for some love. Get everything you need for a season spent outside with Memorial Day savings from the Home Depot. Manicure your yard to perfection with lawn care tools from Ryobi. Then get your garden going with vegetables and herbs from Bonnie Plants Harvest Select. Plus, mulch and soil from Vigoro and Earthgrow. Get your lawn as ready as you are for summer in the sun. Feels like Memorial Day at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Summer is right around the corner, and you know what that means. Cooking out, diving in, and soaking up a whole lot of sunshine. The Home Depot has everything you need to start your summer right. Upgrade your cookout game with Traeger grills and smokers. Then gather around a new Hampton Bay patio set with family and friends. It feels like Memorial Day at the Home Depot with savings on summer fun. The Home Depot, how doers get more done.
That as a focus, this technology will benefit mankind. The 20-something generation is sort of focused on environmental concerns and energy concerns, and those that are active in the UFO subject feel that the technology is an answer to a lot of human problems. That's why a lot of them are activists, for disclosure, because they want that technology to be put out there. Some of them are experiencers and they want that validation and confirmation of alien existence. But there is a large portion in the next generation that believes that this technology will benefit mankind. This has always been around, though. Going back to the 50s contactee movement, the aliens coming in and giving us, fantastical energy and solving our nuclear war problems. Even to this day, it echoes a lot of the same talk that you've heard back then.
Yeah, I don't know how much time we got left, Dave, till the break.
We got about 2.5 minutes. What
I just want to.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say that the one thing I'm excited about, because I have young kids, we're a blended family. So my youngest is 8, my oldest is 23. And the one thing that I will say is this. Kids today in their early 20s, or even as young as my son who is 8, are starting to ask some really cool questions about this stuff, man. And I think that what we're doing is providing them an opportunity with some very cool answers. Like when I took my son out on Sunday to go look for Sasquatch, he was pumped right up, you know? And I showed him footprints, and I've shown him, you know, what we do here. This is what we're going to do. And the same thing with UFOs. Michael, I know you have young children still as well. I mean, I think the children of today are more excited about this topic than they are fearful. And that's a good sign for us moving forward.
I think they're also probably a little more, you know, idealistic than, you know, I'm certainly cynical after 45 years of being in the subject and seeing all the, you know, the intel manipulations and all the political, you know, machinations and the secret stuff, you know. Even up to this point, you know, I'm still sort of skeptical because, you know, everything that led up to 2017 and certainly some of the political stuff now that is occurring, you know, has been orchestrated in a lot of ways. You know, Mellon and Keene and Elizondo, all these people sort of come from this you know, Bigelow group, you know, from the 90s and early 2000s. And this has sort of always been, you know, sort of a push. It's always been a campaign moving in this direction.
I got to cut you off right there. We're going to go in 10 seconds. Thank you to all the super chatters out there. Greatly appreciate the love that you are showing us tonight. And we're going to get going right now. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We have a great panel for you tonight as we have until the top of the hour. Dr. Bob McGuire. We have Michael Huntington, Victor Vigiani from Zeland Communications, Victor Communications, and from MUFON. We have our good friend Tom Whitmore here breaking down the night before the big hearings on UFOs down south in Washington, D.C. Well, east for some of you, north for some of you, you know, south for Victor and I. But nonetheless, it's exciting times, gentlemen, and we're going to hit home this final half hour here because right before the break, Bob, we were talking about there is a good chance that it could be a nothing burger. There's a good chance that we are going to be getting just more crumbs, and all of the real juicy stuff we want to see is going to be behind the scenes. So I guess the public has to come to the reality that after the public hearings are done, realistically, we got to hope for a lot of leaks coming out of these private hearings on where the real juice is going to be.
I don't hope so much for leaks as I hope for activism by people that care. So if you know who your congressman is and say they're on one of these committees, the Intelligence or Armed Services in the House and Senate, or you know your senator, write them, call their offices. They listen. And activism got this thing going tomorrow. Activism also got the Gillibrand Amendment. Activism works, and you heap it on during this election year, and we might get somewhere. What I know is this. If you don't run it up the flagpole in the United States, nobody will salute because there's no flag to salute if you don't run it up the flagpole. And you need to call and demand action from your Congress critters. That's what needs to happen. So if you are disappointed, ask for action. That's the way to get it in a representative democracy. Now, maybe they have agendas that will prevent them from doing exactly what you want, but just do the best you can. Otherwise, nothing will happen.
Do we see it, panel, moving forward, that we will get months of information trickling out? Victor, you've worked in the media long enough to know that a story isn't a story just that day. It does continue on if it's big enough.
Yeah, it has a sort of, I guess, a half-life, if I could explain it that way. If you have a scintilla of information, let's say that tomorrow's briefings, hearings, whatever it is, has a half-life. It will exist on its own. It will be listened to by a number of people, and it will be sort of internalized by us in the UAP research community. It will be digested by certain entities within the media, but eventually it will have a trickle-down effect as all of the information that's come before it. And I keep on going back once again to the 2017 incident. It has had such a massive trickle-down effect since 2017 that it allows us to be part of where we are right now. So whatever is going to happen tomorrow, as significant or insignificant as it might be, it will have a trickle-down effect days or months from now. So we can expect things to happen from the significant or insignificant things that happen tomorrow. It will have some sort of trickle-down effect eventually within the media, within the UAP research community. So that, to me, is the most significant thing that will happen tomorrow. Irrespective of any major revelations, just the fact that this is happening tomorrow will have major implications and trickle downs, days and months from now, because it will not be the last questions that are asked. Because as soon as the U.S. Air Force, which has been totally absent from this whole narrative, I think we all can kind of concede to that, admit to it. The U.S. Air Force has been totally silent on this issue. If the United States Air Force can eventually parallel some of the things that the U.S. Navy has done, then I think some things will move forward, because the Air Force's contention has always been that there's nothing to this. That's the next eggshell that has to be cracked in this whole issue. And once they admit what's going on in the context that may happen tomorrow, I think that will push the Air Force to move forward, because they'll be boxed into a corner. They can't remain silent. So as soon as the U.S. Air Force makes any kind of statement of, well, we think this is happening, that's happening, there is some reality to it, that will push them forward, which will advance the entire narrative. So, we shouldn't be too disappointed if nothing comes from tomorrow, but it eventually will be like a crowbar that will open the next box that we have to get into with respect to the larger issues that we have to deal with.
Gentlemen, I'm going to tie John's question and comment into this on the screen here. Okay, recently leading up to this, the last couple of weeks, we've heard people like Luis Elizondo and others discussing out of Washington, D.C., about the reports of people who go missing and vanish, the effects of alien abduction, the effects that certain pilots and military members had side effects after encountering UAP. I mean, there is a lot that was thrown on the table right previous to this. Could we see any of these critically important topics come out in any type of questioning tomorrow? Tom, let's start with you.
I think they'd have to be very careful before they would bring that up. And we know that it's an important issue. It's very much connected to our whole awareness of the problem of the UFO situation. But it seems to me unlikely that they would take the risk of bringing it up in a public hearing. Now, maybe in private, in a closed hearing, they might ask about it. but it is an issue. Now, if you believe Richard Doty has said that the Defense Intelligence Agency has a map and they have pins stuck on everywhere they've found reported abductions. So it's possible that somewhere in the intelligence community that this is being tracked. And I'd be glad to fill the Congress people in on that sometime, and maybe they can pry that out of the defense establishment someday.
Victor, what's your thoughts?
The whole abduction phenomenon is extremely complex. Okay, in my discussions with Dr. John Mack, and I was very close to John in our communications. He was very clear about the implications of what is happening with respect to the contactees. And he was of the opinion that, we've always sort of tossed around the idea that, has contact been made? He was firmly of the commitment that contact has already been made through these individuals who are being taken, abducted, experienced, whatever you want to call it. So that is one mode of ethical reasoning that is totally unaccepted right now, generally speaking, within the UAP research community. It's not something that needs to be, at this point, brought forward because it's a little bit too far ahead of the curve. But eventually, and it's my opinion, that once all these other things get sorted out, where they're from, the technology and all of that, eventually this issue, and mark my words carefully here, eventually this issue is going to come down to extraterrestrials, their presence here on the planet, and how they're interacting with a number of individuals and maybe hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of human beings here on the planet. It's going to eventually come down to that. Mark my words on that. Now, a lot has to happen before that, but the fact of the matter is the ET presence is so prescient that they have already made contact with human beings, and that to me is the extended version of exactly where we're headed. We're not there yet, and we can't get there yet. And if we demand it to become an issue right now, I think we'll be asking too much of the national security state to admit that that's going on. We can't have them admit it, and they may in fact know it's already happening, but it's a little bit too far ahead of the curve for the general public to really digest the fact that we have a situation where extraterrestrials are contacting human beings. So we have to be very careful about that and be prepared as to how we explain that situation to the general public when the time is right. And I feel that it will happen, but just not yet.
Okay, Michael Huntington, I know you're a real nuts and bolts kind of guy. You're not into the whole woo of everything. It's not really been your style. But when you look at all the news that kind of came out previous to this, the last, say, 3 to 6 weeks, and now we lead up to the morning where we are going to see some very, very interesting topics of discussion, do we see anything getting into play there?
Well, I consider myself pragmatic, but I've been involved in this subject for so long because I've seen UFOs on several different occasions. I believe in the legitimacy of this subject. I think there are scientific mysteries for us to explore. Now, is every UFO case real? No. In fact, a good portion of them are not. So, trying to figure out, what the real narrative is here is sort of the challenge. Ultimately, it's not going to be within the political realm where a lot of this is going to be solved unless you ascribe to, the traditional, sort of conspiratorial view that the government is hiding this, that they have knowledge of extraterrestrials or ultra-dimensional beings, that we have craft, that we've been reverse engineering them, that there has been a cover-up, that there needs to be a confirmation and a disclosure to move us into a new paradigm. There is that view, but ultimately, for those who are experiencers, it's sort of not necessary, other than it's a form of public validation. Maybe they've been looked down upon for having these beliefs or claiming these experiences. And also, ultimately, as a scientific issue, which is what UAP are, Congress really can only do so much. They can look to their machinery and try to get some answers, but they are not a scientific body. They can prescribe scientific endeavors, but this is a scientific issue in a lot of ways, that is outside the political realm. We do not make scientific discoveries or validate scientific claims by political proclamation alone. Now, hopefully this whole thing can suggest to the political people that there is a legitimate scientific issue, as well as national security and safety, for us to start to look at this in a pragmatic, scientific way, to fund, some research programs to get to the bottom of this sort of thing. But are we going to get a political stamp on this? I don't know if you can really trust it. Can we? Right. Does politicians validating this make something a scientific reality? So
very true.
There's a lot of different ways to look at that.
Gentlemen, I want to take this in one final direction here, because we got 9 minutes left, and it's been a heated subject over the last year and a bit regarding ufology and where it's going, and that is Luis Elizondo and Chris Mellon. More so, Luis Elizondo. This is a man who has been absolutely raked over the coals the last year and a half about what he really knows about UFOs, his position with ATIP, was he part of OSAP, what is he truly into, is he the man behind the scenes with as much pull in this as we speak? Bob, I want to start with you on this one, because I know that you've talked to insiders about him, got the full story and details. What is your thinking about leading up to the hearings regarding Elizondo?
Okay, so Elizondo is viewed as a partner and a supporter of the activities of these committees, because he's been one of the people that's been briefing and stoking them up, along with Mellon and others in the background. So they're on his side. And I'm going to tell you, he and Danny Sheehan, they backed the Pentagon into a corner. And it was a contributory factor to Gary Reed getting fired. It was not the only factor that got Gary Reed fired as his head of OUSDI, but it was a contributing factor, because it was listed amongst the specifics that got Gary Reed fired, in addition to him having bad activities in the messing with women department in his office. So those two things were there. So Elizondo is viewed positively by the committee. And Elizondo has been given some really interesting interviews lately. And one of them, he said something akin to the following. Please do not hold me to it as an exact quote. I'm going to paraphrase it because I'm doing it from memory. That he had been briefed and he was satisfied about why the reasoning behind some actions. And it was almost immediately after that he began to pull back and say, I'm stepping aside. I'm going to let others take over. There have been many more names come out that will replace me, and so forth and so on. So I think Elizondo is viewed as positively, and Danny Sheehan has helped him beat back the dumb bunnies in the Pentagon that were trying to ruin his career and other things and his reputation. And I think that he's come out on top, and he's going to leave smelling like a rose. So I want to add one more thing. No, that's okay. I'll pass it on.
All right. Michael Huntington, let's go back to you here.
You want me to comment on Elizondo? Like in what capacity?
And Mellon regarding the job they have did and maybe some of the heat they have taken leading up to this.
Well, we wouldn't be here without these gentlemen and the whole, all the activities that led up to this moment. They have been lobbying, the past couple of years, since To the Stars. They have been lobbying politicians, probably mostly staffers, getting some of these witnesses before these.
Summer is right around the corner, and you know what that means. Cooking out, diving in, and soaking up a whole lot of sunshine. The Home Depot has everything you need to start your summer right. Upgrade your cookout game with Traeger grills and smokers. Then gather around a new Hampton Bay patio set with family and friends. It feels like Memorial Day at the Home Depot with savings on summer fun. The Home Depot, how doers get more done. It's official, summer is almost here. The sun is getting brighter, the days are getting longer, and your lawn is ready for some love. Get everything you need for a season spent outside with Memorial Day savings from the Home Depot. Manicure your yard to perfection with lawn care tools from Ryobi. Then get your garden going with vegetables and herbs from Bonnie Plants Harvest Select. Plus, mulch and soil from Vigoro and Earthgrow. Get your lawn as ready as you are for summer in the sun. Feels like Memorial Day at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
These staffers, and they've been at least at a certain level stressing the idea that these are possible threats, that these are safety concerns, at least at a minimum level. So I think most staffers and politicians have moved forward with that because it's a legitimate concern. Things flying around that we don't know. I mean, that's a concern. Even if it's balloons, whatever, it's a concern. So yeah.
All right. Tom Whitmore.
Okay. I try to follow an ethic of speak no ill of another UFO person in public. And Elizondo has been victimized by a group of people that have basically been trying to gaslight him and bully him. And I think that he made the mistake of coming back publicly in a way that just gave them more ammunition. So, Lou, if you're out there listening, I'd advise that you not do anything in public that would pour gas on the fire. But I think, Lou, like you said, like it's been said, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for him. And I wish him the best of luck. I wish that he would document his accomplishments in a way. I think he tries to act humble when I see him in these interviews, and there's a lot that he doesn't need to be humble about. And I think if he could document and record his accomplishments for the UFO public to see, I think it would solve some of these problems.
Do we need to be holding him as a demigod in this field, though, Victor? I mean, he has said he doesn't like that position. He doesn't like the way the public has put him on a pedestal. But that being said, he also doesn't feel the criticism that he's received has been deserved either.
Well, in my discussions with Luis, I've interviewed him twice, okay? And I've also talked to Danny Sheehan. Danny Sheehan is a very close friend of mine. And in my discussions with Danny and their 4 hours spent at the office of the Inspector General with the lawyers for the office of the Inspector General, they demanded that Susan Goff retract any of her, the bad remarks about Luis Elizondo being part of the whole ATIP program. And they threatened them with a lawsuit, okay? And Danny was very clear on that. So as far as I'm concerned, Luis has put himself out on a very, very big limb. And he knows what he's doing. He knows where he's coming from. He knows the information. And I believe, as most of us I think do, that he is to be trusted with this issue. And he's set forth a pathway for all of the hearings that are coming up. And if anything that's happening right now, Luis and Chris Mellon has set forth a pathway for these committees that are coming up with the interviews and the briefings to pursue that pathway with respect to their communications with the Office of Inspector General and with the DNI. So we have a situation where we need to trust individuals to bring forward information that's salient, that is well validated. And as far as I'm concerned, Luis and Chris Mellon have done that for us. They're the next stage in the evolution of this whole issue. So I think they must be trusted. And even if some of the things that are saying that may not be completely validated through other means, they've opened up the gateway, the floodgates for this information to flow forward. And I think we just have to kind of look at where they're going and how we need to interpret what they're saying.
I need to jump in here again real quick. I do think that these hearings are happening because largely of Chris Mellon, his cachet and his influence on the Hill. But I also have to say that I've been a critic of Lou Elizondo. Lou Elizondo has not been, a uniting figure for everybody within the community. I've met him. I've talked to him. He's actually a very, likable person. And, when I talked to him, I told him that, he's up against a whole history of this subject and a relationship, with intelligence. And, the best way is to be open. The best way is, to promote science and to be, honest with people. And he has done some good, but there's also been a lot of division that has come as a result of maybe his fame, his cult of personality that has risen. I think that's why he stepped back a little bit, because he's recognizing that he's sort of getting into dangerous territory there with the hero worship aspect to it. Yeah. So
absolutely, gentlemen, I hate to cut it short right there. We could probably go another 3 hours on this subject, but Zealand Communications, Victor Vigiani, author and researcher Michael Huntington, MUFON Board of Directors Tom Whitmore, and Dr. Bob McGuire, the official scientist of Spaced Out Radio. Bob will talk to you tomorrow night on the panel and the reaction to it. A great panel tonight. We also say thank you to Bruce Claggett earlier tonight for the media aspect. Coming up next, we're going to head to the swamp. The Swamp Dweller's got a great story for us, and then Fedora-wearing John brings in the UFO report. We're on the eve of history, people. Great show, guys.
Thank you, David. Excellent.
That was a great panel tonight.
Well done.
Yeah. I should ask
Michael. I do agree with you that some. I don't know how much time we got left for chat.
You guys talk away. We got a few minutes. I'll be right back.
Okay. No, I do agree with you, Michael. Anybody who takes a risk, like Elizondo did, I mean, to begin where he began and whatever situations he was exposed to within the C ring down in the bowels of the Pentagon where he started. I guess he realized that he got information that needed to be brought out, and he took certain risks. And whenever you take a risk of doing something, you land up sometimes stepping on your tail. And maybe that's where he's at. But, can we fault him for making mistakes? I just don't think.
Well, it's you know
what I'm saying?
Yeah, we sort of haven't gotten past, the motivation and the trust thing, at least in, large portions of the community. There are critics and there are fans. It's really divided down the middle. He has made a lot of missteps. The minute he walked out onto the stage of an empty room, left his job, taking, materials with him, to be engaged in a private venture, taking the people's information and putting to the stars on it, and, standing on a stage with, hoax balloon materials behind you. It sort of sets that template of, okay, there's a whole stage full of CIA people. Are we going to be manipulated again? And since then, we've gotten what? UFOtainment and, these secret things, he sort of talks in, double speak code, it's like, well, I can tell you this, but, I can't tell you this.
Let me tell you something. When I interviewed him, I said, Luis, if you're standing at a table and you've got a desk and you've got a disclosure box and you've got all your information off to one side, and you want to put all your information into that disclosure box for everyone to analyze, what's in your box that you can put in the disclosure box? And he said to me, Victor, I've never had anyone answer or ask me that question before, because he didn't have an answer for it. And so on that basis, I sort of, I don't know, not discredit him, but my level of trust didn't go up. Let's put it that way, because he really didn't answer my question as to what he would put into that disclosure box, because he knows what he knows, but what will he share with us that's in fact factual information about the disclosure issue? So I go back to my statement. You take a risk of doing something and you pay the price. Sometimes you're a winner and sometimes you're a loser. And maybe that's where he's at.
Well, and I think we want to remember that for the first couple of years, he was taking orders from Tom DeLonge.
Well,
I don't know if he can be blamed for, the fact that the room was empty. They were having a press conference to an empty room. And I don't know if he can be blamed for whatever picture they put up there.
Well, that wasn't too long ago, and he signed up for it and he appeared on the show, and, he's presented himself and been part of, the community, especially the younger activist community. He's appeared on every podcast. I know this because I've watched every single one. He's aligned himself with certain groups, has made enemies of certain groups. He's engaged in different tactics, the sock puppet stuff and, the enemies lists, the Felon 5. I don't know if you guys are following that. There are missteps. And, when an intel person, a person from an intelligence background enters the UFO subject in whatever capacity, and they manipulate it, that's when some people, start to look at it. I think it's mostly a lot of old guard type people that have gone through, Doties and, all that sort of stuff. MJ-12 documents, we've seen a lot of this sort of thing before of, I'm not saying he's fake. I'm not saying, I do think he has exaggerated. I don't think ATIP was an official program per se.
No, nobody says that. Not even Lou. One more thing. We know for a fact, because it came out of his mouth, that a staffer inside the Pentagon walked the videotapes out and gave them to Christopher Mellon, who gave them to the stars. And Tom
Lou's name on it as well as that.
No, he did the documents, which got passed up through the Pentagon bureaucracy, which
said UAV on it. It said UAV.
Oh yeah, and got it released. I agree. The two of them work together.
Gentlemen, I got to say goodnight to all of you guys. I apologize, but
you got to go.
Got to go. I got more show to do. You guys get to go to bed.
Thank you, Dave.
Get ready.
It was fun. It was fun.
We'll all chat.
Thank you
soon.
so much, everyone.
Victor, I wish you well.
Nice to meet you guys.
Thank you,
All
guys.
the best. Thank you very much, Tom.
Okay, Michael, good to meet you.
Take care,
Michael.
guys.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. What a great panel we had tonight. Fantastic. Want to say a big thank you to Vaughn, John M., Donnie ×2, Obi Flat, G West, Rex, Kevin, Bob, Doug, Lori, Ken, Cindy, Excalibur, D. Cohen, Bob, Pascal, Lucy Bell, and Sally for the amazing super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support. Hour 3 is coming up here momentarily, people.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Want to say thank you to everybody tuning us in on this big night on the mighty SOR. We very much appreciate it. And we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Odyssey Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Badal. Badal is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is time once again where we head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller takes us on another journey for another spooky story.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. Sometimes I see weird things while I take my dog on walks. This time I took them to some little forest that's not so far from my home. Usually, this forest is very quiet, and there are not many people around. That's why I like it so much. Anyway, this particular day my dog started to bark at something. I didn't put too much attention to it until they ran towards the way they were barking at. I ran after them, in case it was a person or some animal that was causing them so much distress. But they suddenly stopped at some huge bush, and the barking stopped as well. The first thing I noticed was this bad smell of something rotten and the presence of lots of flies nearby. I wanted to investigate further, so I took a long look around the big bush, and what I found wasn't a dead animal as I expected, but instead I found this huge bundle. It looked more like a sack, and it was tied up with a very large rope. At that moment, I didn't want to think too much about it. I thought it was some cow that died and its lazy owner left the body here inside the sack. That said, why would someone do that? It didn't make sense at all. I moved it with some large stick. I found causing a lot of flies to come on my way, and that awful, rotten smell got stuck in my nose. The barking began again, but I didn't find anything, so I continued on my way. I returned about a week later. I stayed away from there initially, but my curiosity eventually got the best of me, and I went back there to investigate some more. This time there were more flies than last time, and someone moved it not far from the bush trying to dig a hole where it was originally. The sack was covered up with some dirt. I didn't notice anything more, but it was strange. Why would someone move it? I leaned down, and I saw that sack was broken, and I could see what was inside. It looked like a head, but it had skin. It was brown and had no hair. I panicked because I realized that a person was inside of it. Not a farm animal. It was a human body, and someone had put it in the fetal position so it can fit into the sack. I took my dogs and ran to my house as fast as I could. I wanted to reach the police and call them as soon as I reached my house, but my family wanted to be sure, and we returned there. But strangely this time, the sack was gone, and the half-done hole under the bush was filled with dirt again. I think someone was watching me and saw me investigating. We didn't call the police as they wouldn't believe me without any evidence.
I was 16 or 17 at the time of the story. I lived with my grandparents in southern Oklahoma. Their house was on the end of a country road, surrounded on all sides by woods and pastures. My grandpa was a truck driver and was gone for a week, or 2 at a time. My grandmother and I were the only ones there. It was the middle of the summer, and it was hot as hell. One night, between midnight and 2 a.m., I woke up sweating, hot and miserable. It was pitch black and extremely quiet. I realized quickly the fans and the AC were off. I stumbled to the living room just as my grandmother did the same. The house was stuffy and the humidity was choking, so we decided to sit on the front porch. We sat there for a few minutes, sleepily making small talk. Our roads ran for about a mile through a little town. We are at the dead end, as I mentioned. The nearest intersection is about 1,000 feet from our porch. There's a house there, and then the houses continue at that point, like any other city blocks, housing lining both sides of the road. Just about every home had a dog or more, and at some point you faintly noticed the dogs barking from way down the road. Then some more would join in, and then more. The barking progressed closer and closer. You could tell that whatever the dogs were barking at was traveling down the road in our direction. Now this wasn't strange to us. We figured someone was walking or driving down the road and was causing the dogs to bark. But as the dogs nearest to the intersection joined in, my grandmother said, "What is that?" At the intersection, I saw a green glowing light bobbing down the street. It was kind of swinging from the left to the right, up and down, as it came slowly towards us. It was pitch black outside, so we couldn't see a body, but to me, it looked like someone was walking while wearing a green glow light on a necklace. Imagine how it would bounce while you walked or jogged. Now once you cross our side of the intersection, the road is lined on both sides with 6 strands of barbed wire fence. It's about 5 feet tall, so you can't squeeze through the strands without someone spreading it for you. The green light gets halfway to our porch, both of us standing now, quietly watching, and just veers into the pasture. It never elevated over the fence. It didn't get lower or squeeze through it. It just started floating off the road and away from us. It was still traveling in the same direction, but angling away from us. It just appeared out of view, obstructed by the house across the street from us. My grandma asked me if I saw who it was. I told her it was too dark to tell. We still assumed it was a person. A minute or two later, it pops around the other side of the neighbor's house. It's maybe 300 feet away. My grandmother steps to the edge of the porch, leaning forward, trying to see it through the darkness. "What is that?" "Don't know, Granny." The thing stops, no bobbing, no weaving, just stops for a few seconds. Then starts to bob floating straight towards us. It crosses the neighbor's yard. My granny backs up towards the door. It floats over the neighbor's fence and across the street. This thing is finally close enough to see that there's no person attached to it. It's just a floating green orb, about the size of a baseball. It crosses our front fence. I kind of hear the screen door pull open, but I'm full-blown intrigued by what the hell I'm looking at. It wasn't threatening at all. Honestly, it just kind of seemed innocently aloof. Think like you just spent 10 minutes watching a toddler bumblebee around outside. That's how it felt the whole time I was watching. As it came closer, about 10 feet away, it actually began to step off the porch. Bam! Startled, I spun around just in time to hear the deadbolt slide shut on the door that my granny had just slammed shut. I lunge to the door and start banging on it. "Open the door!" The door slings open, and my grandma actually sticks the shotgun out the door as I rush past her. "What the heck is that?" "No idea, Granny." We spent a bit of time looking out the different windows of the house, but we never spotted it again.
Summer is right around the corner, and you know what that means. Cooking out, diving in, and soaking up a whole lot of sunshine. The Home Depot has everything you need to start your summer right. Upgrade your cookout game with Traeger grills and smokers. Then gather around a new Hampton Bay patio set with family and friends. It feels like Memorial Day at the Home Depot with savings on summer fun. The Home Depot, how doers get more done. It's official, summer is almost here. The sun is getting brighter, the days are getting longer, and your lawn is ready for some love. Get everything you need for a season spent outside with Memorial Day savings from the Home Depot. Manicure your yard to perfection with lawn care tools from Ryobi. Then get your garden going with vegetables and herbs from Bonnie Plants Harvest Select. Plus, mulch and soil from Vigoro and Earthgrow. Get your lawn as ready as you are for summer in the sun. Feels like Memorial Day at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
It wasn't too long after that the power and AC came back on. I have no idea what it was. I know about orbs, but this was not that kind of thing. It was tangible. It had a presence and felt like it was intelligent. We spent over 10 minutes watching it. Any ideas? When my grandpa is on the road, my grandma kept a loaded shotgun by her bedroom door. This is a no-nonsense, picking cotton, walking to town because she didn't have a car, southern-raised woman. To this day, when this story comes up, she gets almost an embarrassed look on her face, like she knows it sounds crazy, and just says, "It's true."
Wow. The Swamp Dweller taking us down another freaky path. Remember, you can listen to Swamp Dweller every night on this show as a courtesy feature to our good friend, the Swamp Dweller. And, of course, go over to his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads for more than, he's got thousands of spooky stories just like that. All right, let's move on. Talk more UFOs. The fedora-wearing John Hudson is here once again with the unbiased UFO report.
Nobody's going to know.
They're going to know.
All right, the fedora-wearing John Hudson. Always a good time to have you back on the show. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, Dave. Doing well. How about you, man?
I am pumped up, man. Pumped up.
Really?
Yeah.
What for?
I don't know. I mean, tomorrow is a week to my birthday, and, there might be some other big news going on. I don't know, but it's always a good time.
Oh, the theater thing. That's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right.
You know how it goes.
It's going to be fun.
You know how it goes.
No, I get it. No, look, we all like to perform. It's going to be fun.
All right. We got some big news tonight, my friend. Big news. We had the big panel on right before you for the first 2 hours of the show. Everybody getting pumped up for tomorrow's events.
I know. You guys hit some really interesting topics. It was difficult at times to not be able to participate during certain portions of that. That was a good discussion.
I thought it was too. I mean, everybody brought a little bit to the table, and it's going to be amazing to see what comes out of this, John. And I know that you're going to be watching this with very open eyes. I'm going to be trying to get up early in the morning to actually watch this as well, because it starts at 6 o'clock on the West Coast here. I don't know if I'll be able to make it. I'm going to try my damnedest, though, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I debate. Honestly, I might just stay up. We'll see. But the thing is that my understanding of how these hearings work, and we see the news, but my concern is that there's two sides to this. There is the content of what is presented and who's presenting it, and then there is how that content is dealt with in person at the theater event. And the first half of producing all the content, picking who's going to speak, what they're going to say, and so forth, that's really what the people who wanted the hearing or don't want the hearing care about, right? Like, that's what they care about. The minutia of like how all those Legos get played with, that, my understanding, usually falls much further into the political side and becomes a political football, like a bag of golf balls for a whole bunch of people who are as what was importantly said earlier, every single one of them is up for re-election, right? So there is going to be, you got midterms, and it's there's a good chance we could see some showboating. There's a good chance we could see some people say things they don't mean to say because of tension and stress. You never know what's going to happen. My only concern, though, is that most of the stuff has already been decided. This is just a presentation.
And I think you're right on that. I really do think you're right on that. But either way, the UFO community, John, is going haywire over this, much like they did leading up to the DIA report back in June of last year. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, and another thing that should be noted is that this whole time, we've all been operating on this methodology that essentially was set by Elizondo, and that essentially that if we got to the point that we had hearings, that then things would actually start to happen. I mean, that has been dangled in front of us from the very, very, very beginning, right? And we've seen this execute in that Skyfort essentially shut themselves down when the committee meeting got scheduled, right? So you have a clear, like, this is your goal, click. What if we're wrong? What if a hearing isn't going to do it? What if the whole thing to do this one thing was actually itself flawed? And that's another thing that I worry tremendously about. But it's hard because I don't want to take anything away, because if you look at the likelihood of someone actually starting a project and completing it of any type, let alone getting a congressional hearing done, on just a very personal level, I am so just really happy for the people who were really, just sweating over this, because this is a proper thank you for all that labor, and that's important, right? It's important for people to get those thank yous.
I'm very much intrigued going in to see where this is going to go. Is there going to be somebody on one of those committees that has the strength and the fortitude to ask some very hard questions, not questions that are going to need answering behind the scenes during the private meetings? Will someone stand up who is of an elected capacity and take that opportunity to see what they can get on a public answer? Now, the people who are answering questions from the Pentagon and the military, I look to them to deflect absolutely everything, John. I really do. They're not going to tip their hat to anything that may lead to any, shall we call it, national security being levied towards public hearings.
They'll pick from their catered buffet. They will have a catered buffet of topics to use that they will find make sense, and that's what they'll go with, and that makes sense for them. I mean, it does, and the thing is that we don't know. I mean, we have no idea. The one thing I will caution people with, though, is that I have been a part of much smaller scale, mind you, but similar style things where there's a long public presentation, and then there's like an after thing, right? And I can just say from experience, that's where everything happens, and that's the one sad part, is that is where everything happens. That's where everyone lets their guard down and actually talks, and that's where you actually see movement, and that's what we won't get to see. We'll get to see the result of it, but we won't get to see it in action. Well,
you know what? We can only hope, and we can only see where it goes, and then we have to judge our own opinions on what happens from there. And John, it's either way, it's a very exciting time. How is it going over on UFO Twitter, where a lot of these conversations take place?
Well, I mean, it's essentially one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight is that, and it's something I talked about a little bit the other night, is that I really think that most people, when you've been trying to figure out a lot of things that didn't make sense, and then you get to a point where you think that there's going to be an answer presented, even if there's just a chance there might be an answer presented, at the point the answer is presented, all of the leverage you might have for figuring it out early is gone, because now everyone knows, right? So you end up creating this like weird artificial pressure right up before the event, where you have people who suddenly start deciding that they know enough. Now they know enough that they can make the call confidently, and they'll be right. And then in 5 days, everyone will go, yay, you were smart, right? And so essentially, and then you also have people who will then, call their bet. They'll show their cards, and then that will cause other people to panic and show their stuff because they think something. And so there can be a human emotional element to it that makes it very chaotic.
Do you see it spiraling out of control?
No, not at all. But I think that it's just, it's just so frustrating. I think it's this problem. I think it has a lot more to do with human nature than anything else, right? It's that everyone desperately gets in this mindset where they want to be right, and they get this weird idea that if they were wrong this whole time, that somehow it doesn't mean anything, or they were. It's all these twisted ego things, right? That's really what it is, and ultimately, it's one of the reasons why I really want to try to encourage people to tomorrow just give us one day, just give us one day on Twitter, of just no acidity, right? No vitriol, no hate. These hate lists, like, I don't know what I'm more bothered by. Like, I don't know if I'm more bothered that someone created a hate list, that someone published a hate list, or that people are happy to be on a hate list.
Well,
those are the three things that I don't even know where to go with.
Before we go any further, let's explain what came up earlier today.
Oh, yes. So as a reaction to some previous thing that was done that I haven't nailed down yet, someone created a basically an image that shows a big list of different people in the community, with their basically social media pictures, and at the top it basically said hate, hate, and the other option was no, it wasn't cult. It was two derogatory terms. Let me put it to you that way. And essentially, and that's the thing that amazes me is that you look at this, and like even if I really dislike Elizondo, even if I think he is lying through his teeth, even if I think he is completely full of it, I would never want to be on a hate list for him. Like, I don't know. Like I when I saw this published, what I was expecting was to see a bunch of people respond saying, "Take me off, take 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 me off." And instead, what I saw was a bunch of people responding with, "I made it to the list. I made it to the list. Look at me. I'm on the list." And it's like, and the thing is that I get why people don't like Elizondo, and I have no problem. They have every right not to like the man. That's fine. But this is just, it's pretty. I'll say that. It is pretty. At least it's pretty. I'll give it that.
I tend to think that a lot of what we see here is there are people out there who believe that Lou Elizondo walks on water next to Jesus Christ himself. Elizondo, who has been on this show a couple of times now, including just a couple of weeks ago.
Choke, Dave.
What's that?
I said you almost made me choke.
Why?
I was trying to drink something. You're talking about like people think he's walking on water. It's funny, man.
Well, true. There are people out there who believe.
I don't think that's true anymore.
No, I'll disagree with you on that.
Okay, you might be right.
But let me finish my thought on this.
Yeah.
And the reason why is, you know what? There are people on this list that I personally do not agree with. I don't agree with their opinions. Michael Huntington, who was just on our show, he's on this list. Yet if you heard him tonight, he talked very positively about Luis Elizondo.
Yep.
Excuse me. And following through with the plans he said that he was going to. Now, I have no problem, like looking at this list, I have no problem with a lot of the people on this list because, well, we'll get to it when we return on Spaced Out Radio. The Unbiased UFO Report with the fedora-wearing John Hudson continues right after this. Stay tuned. Final half hour of the show is next. Let's just save our thoughts for this until we come back.
Yeah, totally. No problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, excellent panel.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
There's a couple people on there that I don't hear from enough. That I should hear from more often. I like. I need to go make a list. Yeah, and we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Your kids ever get into Nerf stuff, Dave?
Oh, Nerf guns. Highly promote Nerf guns.
Do you ever get into modification?
No, I'm not that connected.
How old's your kids?
He's 8.
Okay, we'll talk offline. See if you're okay with me sending you something.
If it helps me pick him off, absolutely.
I do a lot of heavy cosplay modifications, where it really doesn't look anything like the original Nerf gun, and then I do all the normal spring upgrades and so forth, and so it's just cosplay fun stuff. So to me, it's like one of the benefits of having kids is you get to do kind of stuff like this, and technically you have an excuse.
For people asking, I will bring that list up once we get back from the break here.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, if you ever answered this on the show, it's fine, but it's related to a different topic. Do you think that these hearings, and obviously it would depend on how they go and so forth, do you think successful hearings here would have any influence at all, in positive or negative, as to whether there be any public hearings in Canada?
No.
I didn't think so either. I was just curious.
No.
Oh. No, I think most countries will be like, you go ahead, have fun.
John? The Lip Blade says, is it just me, or does John, the fantastic fedora fella, need a handlebar mustache?
Oh, hell no.
Oh, hell yes, he does. Oh, hell yes, he does.
And please understand, if I lived in a different place, I would go with the Guy Fawkes. I think mustaches are fantastic. I just don't live in a place that's terribly friendly to mustaches. So,
well, you know what?
So it's a when in Rome sort of thing.
You know what? I think that what's really nice is the Lip Blade on Saturday night waxed up his mustache, or pardon me, on was it Saturday? Was it Saturday or Thursday? Waxed up his mustache. No, it was Sunday. Just so we could go out and look for Sasquatch. It was beautiful.
Sweet.
It was beautiful.
That's awesome. Oh, hey, Dave. One of the people that I think you had on, showed a picture in a book of a trail cam that took a picture of, like, fingers?
Yes. Yeah.
How do I get that picture?
It's in Carter Bouchard's book.
That picture is something else, man. That picture is that. Hold
on.
Even for as much as I've tried to accept from you, like learning from you, like it's still that picture is hard to process. It really is.
Is it in this book or is it in the next book?
He put it in like a book, like a printed book?
Yeah, I'm trying to just quickly.
You have to like physically buy it at a store. Oh, wow. It's crazy.
I know it's in one of these two books. Shoot, I'm going to run out of time.
We some of this stuff we can go through faster, and if we want, we can talk a little bit afterwards.
Yeah.
As long as everyone's having a good time.
5 seconds, John. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Thank you so much for tuning us in. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, as I lose my voice here, excuse me. If you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. The fedora-wearing John Hudson is here for the unbiased UFO report. And John, right before the break, we're talking about this list of so-called haters that was put out. As far as we know, we don't know who put it out, but it really did hit home about people who are anti-Luis Elizondo going on there. And
it should be said really quickly that I know this was a reflection of a list that existed somewhere else. What I don't know is if in the process of converting from that list to this visual, whether a lot of people were added.
Summer is right around the corner, and you know what that means. Cooking out, diving in, and soaking up a whole lot of sunshine. The Home Depot has everything you need to start your summer right. Upgrade your cookout game with Traeger grills and smokers. Then gather around a new Hampton Bay patio set with family and friends. It feels like Memorial Day at the Home Depot with savings on summer fun. The Home Depot, how doers get more done. It's official, summer is almost here. The sun is getting brighter, the days are getting longer, and your lawn is ready for some love. Get everything you need for a season spent outside with Memorial Day savings from the Home Depot. Manicure your yard to perfection with lawn care tools from Ryobi. Then get your garden going with vegetables and herbs from Bonnie Plants Harvest Select. Plus, mulch and soil from Vigoro and Earthgrow. Get your lawn as ready as you are for summer in the sun. Feels like Memorial Day at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
On the original list. So I do not know if the people on this list were actually all on the original list, because to the point someone else made in the chat, I think you made, several of these people are not by any means haters. They're just critical thinkers that have good questions, right? A lot of these people are my friends.
Look, there are people on this list, and I'm not going to go through them, who are complete anti-Lou Elizondo. But there are a number of good, high-quality, hard workers on this list that are just wanting to get some straight answers. I look at a lot of friends on this list. Joel Griffin Dodd, Bruce Fenton.
A lot of friends on that list.
Bruce Fenton, Michael Huntington. You know what? For as critical as he's been, John Greenwald just wants the straight goods because he has conflicting information. Okay,
there is conflicting information.
Absolutely. John Majorowski's a good one. Even our former host, Lynn Wallington, she has questions that need to be asked. And if people know Lynn, they know that she is, a very, very strong person for pro-ufology and pro-getting answers.
John's a teddy bear, dude. Like, most of these people are really sweet, kind, normal humans that have good, good heads. And but look, the thing is that the problem with this whole scenario is there are enough clues that if you have any reason to doubt, you can find a lot of reason to doubt.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, there are just barely enough clues that if you want to believe and you want to suspend the data analysis to a degree or to a whole account, you can do that as well. And that's why we end up with this, this splintered, faction. But the thing is that for tomorrow, there's going to be a lot of people watching these hearings, and there's going to be a lot of people putting out stuff live as it's happening, and there's going to be a lot of discussion going on. There's going to be a lot of discussion afterwards, and the thing is that none of that's going to happen if we're using things like this to decide who is on our side and who's on their side, right? And so, I would encourage people to maybe just for one day, just one day tomorrow, just one day, try to just cut out the playground stuff, and just try to be constructive, because otherwise we're not going to get any information out. And the thing is that, there's going to be these closed doors hearings, but look, we all know how this works, right? Something will come out, and I'd like to find out what it is, right? So
I don't even know who half these people are on this list.
Well, that's the thing that's so funny is that, it's an interesting list of people, to be very honest with you, because there's some people on here who I'm actually very close to, and there are a lot of people on here who I'm actually know well enough to think that this is silly, right? And then I know other people that just giggle over it, and just don't even think it's a big deal, and that's fine too, right? But to me, it's just it's like this whole thing where people will say post which researchers you don't trust and why, or all these all these really. And the thing is that, look, there are ways to ask that question constructively that will not produce the fighting that will be produced by the way that was asked.
Absolutely. Well, and the problem that we have, and we've had this since the beginning of the To the Stars Academy, is the fact that there are people out there who are so passionate about the subject that we're not allowed to ask hard, tough questions. And the one thing that we have to understand is a lot of people on that list just wanted some hard questions asked. Hard questions are okay. It's okay for Lou, he's a big boy, to be asked tough questions. And Lou will even tell you that himself. I remember I had it on this show where Lou Elizondo said on this show, I am not a religious UFO deity. I don't like being held to the standards that many in UFO Twitter land had put me on. He was very uncomfortable with it. And when I brought that up in a conversation on UFO Twitter, I was completely chastised. Well, who gave you this information? I said, Elizondo. Take a listen to my interview with him.
Right. Well, and the thing is it just to make a quick point to this comment, the thing is that the thing people have to remember is that my understanding is that the original list was actually produced by someone within Elizondo's camp as a list of people that they knew were adversarial entities, right? So the original list was almost not really constructive, kind of constructive in a weird sort of way, more of a triage sort of thing, and so but done as an internal tool, right? And then that became so. There's a lot of people, for example, getting really upset about the Taliban thing on the side, and I get it. Like when I first saw it, I got upset too. But if you remember that this started out at some level as a comical list of people that hate Elizondo, the Taliban aren't huge fans of Elizondo. So
very true.
That was actually
very true.
That was a funny thing. That wasn't actually meant to be a rub. That was actually a funny thing. So that one is not a big deal.
Basically, I'm sure somebody meant that list in humor and in jest. It's going to fly around as per usual. But the thing that I don't like is there's good people on that list that are going to be, pinned and tied to it. And asking tough questions, and we're going to move on right after this, John, but asking tough questions does not consent to somebody being on a list of hate groups. The whole point is we need
the reason why you do this.
We need to be able to ask tough questions to get tough questions answered. This isn't softball here. This is a topic. This isn't about Elizondo. This isn't about Mellon. This isn't even about the United States government. This is a subject that is going to affect 7.8 billion people on this planet. And however that information gets out, we need it out. We need the full story, not the half story or the quarter story.
And I will just add a last point that I will agree with people. If anyone ever says it around my president, that we let it get too much about certain people.
Agreed.
Okay. Now, I'm not saying that I know what we could have done to stop it, because you did have people in very critical, special positions, and that's what happens. But I completely agree that it's several times through this whole thing, it has become way more about an individual and much less about what they were doing. And I understand why that would irritate people to no end. And it's something that we have to always combat against, because it's a human tendency.
Very true. Very good point. All right, John, let's move on in the unbiased UFO report that we have here. This is a little bit of a weird story, and I'm wondering if it could be about portals. What happened on the ski hills of California?
Well, so it wasn't the ski hills of California. This lovely individual who, and keep in mind that this was back in 2018, he went skiing in New York. And he's a firefighter. And somehow he got separated from his group. And he vanished. 70 people spent a long time and a lot of money looking for him. Nothing. 5 days later, he calls the police from Sacramento, California, 2,900 miles away, and has no idea how he got there. And has no identification on him, no wallet, nothing.
I know this. This gentleman was a firefighter out of the province of Ontario. And
he's a Canadian guy. Yep.
And he was gone for 5 days, and somehow he was able to get a hold of a cell phone and remember his wife's phone number after calling 911. And so what's the update on this?
So this is the thing that I find very interesting, but also informative, because people need to understand that if you ever needed to learn the lesson of it's about the journey, not the destination, this is the topic, because there's very rarely any payout, right? The story is usually the fun part, because essentially it's been a couple years later, and fundamentally no one has any clue what happened. The best guess that has been given is that he had that something happened to him while skiing in New York that resulted in a brain injury that resulted in amnesia for 5 days and the ability to get himself to Sacramento. And it appears that his wife accepted this and he's back home. But they're basically saying it was a combination of retrograde amnesia with memory loss events related to the blow to a head. I mean, and the thing is that, okay, 5 days. Could you get from New York to Sacramento in 5 days? Absolutely, right? But you'd be hitchhiking. So it seems like it wouldn't be hard to find somebody that's seen your face. Well, you're going to show up in all sorts of cameras. Well, I don't know. This is a really interesting one. My point is, I think there's evidence to support what you originally said, as crazy as what you said was.
Well, you know what? Here's the other thing about this case that a lot of people don't understand. He was still dressed in his ski suit in California and ski boots. He had no other clothing. He had no other dress other than his ski suit.
Hopefully they were good, like squishy boots, not the really rigid ones, right?
Oh, who knows? Who knows? But I'm not saying it was a portal that shoved him there, because look, in 5 days with a truck driver, when they're hauling butt, driving their maximum 13 hours a day or whatever they're allowed to drive, you can get across country. All right?
Yep, you could.
And if somebody picked him up at the mountain and drove him someplace to a truck stop and wherever, I mean, we'll never know. Obviously, there's some sort of amnesia or...
But it would have been a shorter ride for him to drive home. Canada.
Well, I agree with you. We don't know.
And they usually frown on it when you Canadians come down here and then just don't leave, right? They usually want to know how many days you're going to stay and, when you're going to go home. You guys ask the same thing about us.
I agree. I fully agree, but it's one of those weird stories that we will never really know. And
but it's a good one.
Finally tonight, you got a little bit about Brian Bender. Is this the same that Bob McGuire was talking about a little bit earlier?
I was trying to get together a proper differential between the two documents, because I was able to find 3 hits for the document late last evening, 2 last evening and 1 earlier today on the Wayback Machine. So I believe I'm going to be able to recover the original article, and then I'll be able to do a proper differential. But essentially, what it comes down to is there was this, it's still a very good article by Brian Bender, came out in Politico, and essentially what is being reported and was reported to me for the first time on your show not too long ago, which I believe it was Bob McGuire who said it, if I remember correctly. That essentially the original version of his article that was out this morning is gone, and it's been replaced with a much tempered down, much defanged, much detoothed, declawed sort of vanilla pudding sort of version, and no explanation for why that occurred.
Well, I'm sure Bender would have had his hand
kind of creepy.
Yeah, I'm sure Bender would have had his hand slapped on something along those. Along those lines.
Did you read the original article?
I never got a chance to.
Yes, I didn't either, but I can't imagine it was that aggressive. I mean, it's Brian Bender. I mean, come on. I don't know. It just seems weird to me. To me, what it sounds like he bumbled onto something.
Could be.
He bumbled onto something and he didn't even know it, and they freaked out.
Could
or his management freaked out. Who knows?
I'm sure the editors may have got a phone call and said, you may want to tone this down a little bit so we don't get into trouble. A lot of times what happens is all of a sudden the lawyers take another read at it and they say, we may want to eliminate paragraph 2, paragraph 4, paragraph 9. All right, we may be in trouble there. And that's
otherwise, we're going to have to redefine the scope of exposure.
Exactly. Fedora John, thank you for another great outpouring of the Unbiased UFO Report. We'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you.
All right, Fedora John Hudson there, everyone. It's time for Shirky Poo's News.
What time is it?
It's time for Shirky Poo's News!
That's right. You know when Shirky Poo's theme music comes on, we mean some serious stuff. We're going to start off over in the United Kingdom, where a paranormal investigator was stalked by a violent ghost for over a year and has now explained how it latched onto her. And it left her fearing for her life. Debbie McCall first became aware of her psychic senses as a child, began to have visitations in her 20s of faceless people looking for help. Well, curated into a ghost hunting career. At first, this spirit would taunt her by moving items around, but eventually became more aggressive, even shoving her down the stairs. She said this spirit just wouldn't go away. The haunting got so particularly bad, and it was poltergeist haunting, a spirit that causes physical disturbances, so objects would be moved, things would be flying around, and I even got attacked, she said. I was pushed down the stairs and dragged by my ankles. That's happened 4 or 5 times, and one time it was even witnessed by a friend who ran out of the house. She added, I was literally stalked for over a year. The spirit was a little bit taller than I, around 5'7" and quite wide. There was a weight to him, which is funny to say about a spirit. I was absolutely terrified. I had no idea how to deal with it. At the time I couldn't see him, but I could feel him. Now, the former office worker first went to a church looking to help banish him, but to no avail, so she turned to a medium who told her she needed to let go of any negative energy that was keeping the spirit attached to her. Reflecting on the difficult time, Debbie has confessed she thought she was going completely mad as the spirit started taunting her at work and around friends. Fortunately, she got rid of the spirit around 2013, but there was no turning back as she now goes for more ghosties. Let's just hope this young lady turns to figuring out how to protect herself on a ghost event. A teacher who moved into a house in Liverpool was taken aback to discover a rag doll sealed into one of the walls, with a note claiming the doll had killed the previous owners. Oh my. Jonathan Lewis said he was doing repairs to the old house, and he had just bought it, when he broke through a wall with a hammer to get a closer look at an electrical outlet. Instead, he discovered an old child's toy, a rag doll with wool braids, sitting staring at him through the hole in the wall. Oh, there's nothing freaky about that. The doll had a menacing note tucked under in its fabric little arm. Lewis held the note and read it with a grim message. "Thank you for freeing me. My name is Emily. My original owners lived in this house in 1961. I didn't like them, so they had to go. All they did was sing and be merry. It was sickening. Stabbing was my choice of death for them, so I hope you have knives. Hope you sleep well." Despite the date of the note, Lewis is quite sure the doll was put inside the wall during a kitchen renovation that happened 4 or 5 years ago, a building detail the real estate agent provided. He was said that the paper the note was written on doesn't look particularly aged well, and he finds the incident rather amusing. He says, "I'll be honest, I found the whole thing hilarious. I'd probably do the exact same thing." His friend's response was to tell him to put the house back on the market and flee at once. And finally tonight, an Ontario woman is offering $200 reward for the return of an unusual stolen piece of property, a 125-pound polar bear statue. Nancy Allen of London said her house is well known for the concrete polar bear statues that have adorned her garden for more than 30 years, but she discovered last week that one of them was missing. She provided a picture on Facebook and the rest of social media, hoping for its return. She goes, "I just don't understand why someone would steal it. I don't get it. I just want it back." We want to say thank you to Shirky Poo for the amazing news coverage in Shirky Poo's news. Thank you to Big Bad John, the fedora-wearing wonder, for the unbiased UFO report. Our good friend, the Swamp Dweller, for hanging on out with us and telling us another couple spooky stories. You can find him at youtube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads. And of course, to our panel tonight, Dr. Bob McGuire, Michael Huntington, Bruce Claggett, Victor Vigiani, and Tom Whitmore regarding the panel for the U.S. Congress pre-hearings. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.
Summer is right around the corner, and you know what that means. Cooking out, diving in, and soaking up a whole lot of sunshine. The Home Depot has everything you need to start your summer right. Upgrade your cookout game with Traeger grills and smokers. Then gather around a new Hampton Bay patio set with family and friends. It feels like Memorial Day at the Home Depot with savings on summer fun. The Home Depot, how doers get more done.